Chapter 439. Jian Chun slowly walked to the bedside and looked at Changyang, who with concern. He softly called out, "Big brother, do you still recognize me? I'm your fourth brother, Changyang Shoten." Hearing this, Changyang, whose originally empty eyes gradually regained some life. He slowly turned his gaze to Jianshun and quietly stared at Jianshun's somewhat familiar face for a while. His expression gradually revealed a trace of excitement, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. He said in a hoarse voice, Fourth brother, you're finally back." Jianshun smiled. He and Changyang, who had a close relationship since childhood. Now that they were brothers, Jianshun felt a burst of excitement in his heart. Jianshun turned to look at the group behind him and said, "Father, elder aunt, I have something to say to big brother alone. Can you leave us alone for a while?" Changyangba nodded slightly and said, "Xiangtian, you should comfort your big brother." With that, Changyangba led Jianshun's two aunts out of the room. Only Changyang, whose mother, Ling Long, was still sitting there in a daze, as if she had lost her soul. Jianshun came to Ling Long and comforted her. "Elder aunt, don't worry. I will make big brother better. Let me persuade big brother. I have a way to cheer him up. The premise is that everyone needs to leave us alone for a while." Hearing this, Ling Long's eyes regained some life. She raised her head and looked at Jianshun's face that had changed a lot in the past few years. Then, she reached out her trembling hand and grabbed Jianshun's hand. She sobbed, "Xiangtian, elder aunt is begging you. You must persuade your big brother. You must let him live. Elder aunt is begging you." Ling Long's face was full of pleading. She knew that her son had fallen to this point and had lost the courage to continue living. He could not take care of himself and needed others to take care of him. Living like this was simply worse than death. It was an incomparably painful torture. Jianshun solemnly nodded and said, "Elder aunt, don't worry. I will definitely not disappoint you." Jianshun's voice was full of confidence. Jianshun's confident appearance made Ling Long feel as if she had grasped onto a life-saving straw. Her originally worried heart finally settled down a bit. She then walked out of the room, leaving Jianshun and Changyang alone. Looking at the familiar face in front of him, Changyang, whose eyes faintly flickered with tears. He could not help but recall the scene in Kargath Academy a few years ago. He still clearly remembered that he had been bullied by the Huayan sect's young master, Cheng Mingxiang, and had been beaten black and blue. In order to avenge him, his fourth brother had fought against Cheng Mingxiang and a dozen other students who were not weak. In the end, he had cut off Cheng Mingxiang's arm and offended the Huayan sect. From then on, he had left home alone. The scene from a few years ago had always been a pain in Changyang's heart. He knew that it was all because of him that his fourth brother had been forced to leave home alone. His fourth brother had fallen to such a state because of him. This made Changyang feel very guilty in his heart. He was the one who had implicated his fourth brother. His fourth brother had left for a few years without any news. This made Changyang feel a thought that he did not dare to accept. But now, his fourth brother had suddenly returned after leaving home for a few years. This made Changyang feel extremely excited, as if he had forgotten about his injuries. Jianshun arrived before Changyang and said, "Big brother, I can understand how you feel. You must pull yourself together. Before long, fourth brother will give you a new lease on life." Hearing this, Changyang's face became gloomy. He sighed and said, "Fourth brother, you don't understand. To give a new lease on life, you need to be a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master. I will never be able to stand up again in this lifetime." Changyang's face was ashen. His voice was hoarse, and his eyes were hollow. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell with a single glance that he had lost the motivation to continue living. Jianshun did not say anything. He slowly extended his hands. Suddenly, the Radiant Saint force in the surroundings gathered towards his hands at an unbelievable speed. Very soon, it formed a ball of bright, milky white light. As the Radiant Saint force gathered, the milky white light on his hands became brighter and brighter. It became more and more dazzling, dyeing the entire room white. If it were not for the fact that it was daytime and the light outside was extremely bright, the light from the Radiant Saint force would have been enough to illuminate the entire Changyang prefecture. Outside the door, Jinshin's mother, Bai Yuntian, stared at the bright, sunny sky in surprise. In the end, her gaze landed on the room that only Jinshin and Chanyang were in. Her eyes were filled with shock, and there was even some shock. What powerful radiant saint force! Who did this? Don't tell me. Bai Yuntian thought inside. She was extremely shocked. As a radiant saint master, she could clearly sense the pulses of radiant saint force in the surroundings. Moreover, the power of the radiant saint force shocked her. She had never seen such powerful and pure radiant saint force before. This was an ability that only a Class 5 radiant saint master possessed. Ever since they had seen Chanyang Ba and his aunts had all become very grief-stricken. As a result, none of them noticed the changes in Bai Yuntian's face. In the room, Chanyang stared at the white light in Jinshin's hands in shock. Disbelief filled his face. He obviously recognized the white light as the radiant saint force that only radiant saint masters could control. Jinshin slowly pressed down with his hands. Dense radiant saint force enveloped Chanyang's entire body. Under such dense and pure radiant saint force, Chanyang experienced a pleasure that he had never experienced before. His entire body was filled with indescribable comfort. This was a feeling that low-level radiant saint masters could never give him. This lasted for around 10 minutes. Only then did Jinshin slowly lower his hands and stop controlling the radiant saint force. With the nourishment of Jinshin's radiant saint force, Chanyang's slightly pale complexion completely recovered. Even the wounds on his limbs had completely healed. In just 10 minutes, he had achieved results that low-level radiant saint force could never achieve. Chanyang's shock could no longer be described with words. He stared at Jinshin in disbelief, unable to say anything for quite some time. Jinshin sat down by the bed and looked at his brother's shocked gaze. A rare sliver of complacency appeared on his face. He said, "Brother, you might not know this, but your fourth brother is not only a fighter, but also a Radiant Saint Master. He's a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master, only a step away from Class 7. It won't be long before your body recovers." Chanyang suddenly became emotional. Tears had already gathered in his eyes. He said with a trembling voice, "Fourth brother, is what you said true? Are you really a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master?" At that moment, Chanyang's withered heart suddenly became filled with vitality again. Jinshin smiled. "Brother, haven't you sensed it yet? The Radiant Saint Force I control is much more powerful than the Radiant Saint Masters you've seen in the past. Brother, don't worry. Before long, I'll be able to revive you and turn you back into a normal person. You have to live on and wait for that day to come." Chanyang's excitement could no longer be described with words. Jinshin's words made him give up on his suicidal thoughts, giving him the motivation and hope to live on. He said with a trembling voice, "Fourth brother, don't worry. I'll definitely wait for you. I'll definitely live on well." Seeing his brother walk out from the shadow of death, Jinshin also smiled happily. Afterwards, he called in the group of people waiting outside. As soon as Chanyang Ba and his aunts entered, they discovered to their surprise that Chanyang had suddenly become spirited. He was in high spirits. His previous gloominess had vanished, which surprised them. They wondered just how Jinshin had enlightened their brother. Bai Yuntian stared at her child deeply. Her eyes were filled with love, and there was a sense of separation. "Ahu, are you all right?" Linglong also noticed her son's change. She leaned on the bed and asked in concern. Seeing his mother's haggard face, Chanyang could not help but cry. He sobbed, "Mother, don't worry. I'm fine now. I'll definitely live on well." Hearing this, Linglong finally let go of a large stone in her heart. She leaned on the bed and began to bawl. At this moment, a group of over 1,000 people majestically entered Lore City. Quite a few yellow banners fluttered in the wind, with the words Huayun's sect written on them. The battle had just ended, and the various large powers that had helped the Kingdom of Jessen on the front lines had all retreated. The Huayun sect's group had also just returned from the southern forts. On the way, they passed through Lore City and hurried towards the Huayun sect. The middle-aged man at the front was the Huayun sect's current sect master, Cheng Fei. He was also Cheng Mingxiang's father. At this moment, a person wearing black robes quickly ran over from the distance. When he approached the Huayan sect's group, he was immediately stopped by two people riding magical beast mounts. The Huayan sect's sect master, Cheng Fei, clearly recognized that person. He said, "Let him come over." The two middle-aged men wearing the Huayan sect's robes immediately moved aside. The black-robed person quickly ran over to the Huayan sect's sect master and whispered something in his ear. Afterward, a gleam of light flashed through Cheng Fei's eyes. His gaze immediately became piercing as he yelled out, "Changyang Xiangtian has actually returned. Is that true?" "It's absolutely true," the man in black said with a serious face. Cheng Fei's eyes flashed, and he waved his hand. He shouted, "Change direction. Go to Changyang Prefecture." Chapter 440. Changyang Prefecture. Jianshun and the others were still in the room, comforting Ling Long and her daughter when a voice rang out from outside. "Family head, this subordinate has an extremely urgent matter to report." Changyang Ba used his eyes to indicate for a maid to open the door. As soon as the door was opened, an old man who looked like a housekeeper quickly walked in with a flustered expression. He urgently said, "Family head, something bad has happened. A large group of people from the Huayan sect is currently approaching our Changyang Prefecture." Hearing this, Changyang Ba's expression changed slightly. He waved his hand to have the housekeeper leave. His brows were tightly knitted together as he said in a heavy voice, "I reckon that news of Xiang Er's return has already been leaked. They are coming for Xiang Er. They still haven't forgotten about the matter from several years ago." Apart from Jianshun, everyone's expressions changed. Bai Yunqian's face was even somewhat pale. She hastily walked over and tightly held onto Jianshun's hand, her expression filled with worry. The two of them had been separated for several years. Now that they had finally reunited, Bai Yuntian could not bear for Jianshun to once again wander about by himself. Jianshun could clearly feel that his mother's hand was constantly trembling, causing him to involuntarily feel pain in his heart. He softly said, "Mother, don't worry. There won't be a time for this child to do that." "Husband, quickly call Changbo over. We've already heard about how Changbo displayed his might at the northern fort. With Changbo present, even if the two experts from the Huayan sect personally come, they won't dare to act rashly." Yu Fengyan hastily said, her expression filled with worry. Changyang Ba shook his head. "Changbo and all the Heaven Saint Masters of the Kingdom of Jessen are currently receiving the Qin Empire's imperial advisor. This is the best opportunity for us to establish a relationship with the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire. No one will give up on this rare opportunity. I believe that Changbo won't be returning anytime soon. What we do? Our Changyang Prefecture only has one Heaven Saint Master, Changbo. Now that Changbo isn't here, how are we going to deal with the Huayan sect? Right now, the Huayan sect is already in Lore City and will arrive in Changyang Prefecture very soon. There isn't much time left." Yu Fengyan's face was filled with worry. Although Jianshun was not her son, she was also extremely concerned about Jianshun, treating him as if he was her own child. "Second aunt, you don't need to worry. I will deal with the Huayan sect," Jianshun said. "Foolish child, don't speak nonsense. The Huayan sect is powerful. How can you deal with them?" Bai Yuntian softly said as she looked at Jianshun with a doting gaze. Her hands were tightly wrapped around Jianshun's arm, afraid that Jianshun would leave again like he did a few years ago. "Mother, your son is no longer afraid of the Huayan sect." Jianshun defended himself. The warmth of his family had melted Jianshun's heart. He seemed to have become a child, completely concealing the imposing aura he possessed outside. Changyang Ba said, "Xiang Er, you don't need to worry. Our Changyang Prefecture has obtained a precious secret codex, and our strength has greatly increased compared to a few years ago. Although we have lost quite a few people on the battlefield, the Huayan sect has also suffered quite a few losses. Adding on the fact that you, Changbo, have grasped a heaven-class battle skill, our Changyang Prefecture's overall strength is not much weaker than the Huayan sect's. You can stay here at ease. The family will deal with the Huayan sect's matters." The Huayan sect is the #1 sect in our kingdom of Jessen. Even the imperial family is afraid of its strength. Xiangtian cut off the arm of the Huayan sect master's only son, Cheng Mingxiang. The Huayan sect will definitely not let this matter rest. If our Changyang who doesn't back down, there will most likely be a fierce battle today. That will be very unfavorable for our Changyang prefecture. In my opinion, we should hurry and let Xiangtian go hide. We don't want to implicate our entire family and cause so many innocent people to die because of him, said by Yu Shuang with a displeased expression. How can we do that? Xiangtian has already been wandering outside for several years. He has suffered so much, barely surviving several times. He has only just returned. How can we be so heartless as to let him leave again? Yu Fengyan immediately said. Bai Yushuang coldly snorted. She stared at Yu Fengyan and righteously said, "Open your eyes and see who is standing beside you. Could it be that you don't see such a big living person? No matter what he has experienced outside, isn't he still living well? He has already endured several years, so why would he care about such a small amount of time? If he continues to stay here, he will only cause trouble for our Changyang prefecture and implicate our entire family. Second sister, I know you are worried about Xiangtian, but I am doing this for everyone's sake. All of you shut your mouths." Changyang Ba suddenly shouted, shocking everyone. His expression was very ugly as he looked at Bai Yushuang. His face was filled with unconcealable anger as he shouted, "Everyone, stop arguing. I have already made my decision. Although the Huayan sect is powerful, our Changyang prefecture is not so easy to bully. Xianger, you stay here and don't go anywhere. I will immediately go gather people. I want to see just how arrogant the Huayan sect is. Right now, our Changyang prefecture does not fear them." After saying that, Changyang Ba waved his hand and left. Very quickly, the originally quiet Changyang prefecture became lively. The people in the room could hear the constant shouts coming from outside, as well as the sound of footsteps. Changyang, whose servants and guards were gathering from all directions. Bai Yushuang's expression was very ugly as she looked at Jianshan. She coldly snorted, "You really are my Changyang prefecture star of calamity. Since you were young, you only know how to cause trouble everywhere. Our Changyang prefecture will sooner or later be destroyed by your hands." Yu Fengyan and Bai Yuntian's expressions became very ugly. Bai Yushuang's words were a bit too heavy. Changyang, who was lying on the bed, couldn't take it anymore. He turned his head and stared at Bai Yushuang fiercely. He said, "Third aunt, how can you say that about fourth brother? What happened back then was Cheng Mingxiang's fault. It was not fourth brother's fault at all. Fourth brother went to find Cheng Mingxiang to avenge my useless elder brother. Speaking of which, it was all because of me. If you want to blame someone, blame it on me." Third sister, Ahu is right. What happened back then was not entirely Xiangtian's fault. Moreover, Xiangtian was able to cut off the arm of Cheng Mingxiang, who had the strength of a great saint, with the strength of a primary saint. Such a powerful strength is rare in our kingdom of Jessen. We should be happy instead of targeting Xiangtian like this. Ling Long also spoke. In the past, her attitude towards Jianshan was neither cold nor indifferent. But today, Jianshan had saved her son, which made her feel very grateful. Therefore, her favorable impression of Jianshan had improved a lot. Seeing that the three sisters were standing on Jianshan's side, Bai Yushuang knew that she would only be asking for a rebuff if she continued. She coldly snorted and left without saying anything. Ling Long came to Jianshan's side and intimately held his hand. She softly said, "Xiangtian, don't mind her. Don't take your third aunt's words to heart. You don't need to worry about the Huayan sect. With you, Changbo, they won't dare to be too presumptuous." However, this Changbo really hid his strength deeply. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. If it wasn't for the news from a northern fort, none of us would have known. If we had known earlier, you wouldn't have fallen into such a situation a few years ago. It has really been hard on you these years. Now, Ling Long's attitude towards Jianshan had completely changed. Jianshan smiled and said, "Don't worry, eldest aunt. The current Xiangtian is not so easy to bully. Third aunt will regret it sooner or later." Mother, you underestimate fourth brother too much. Fourth brother's talent has been extraordinary since he was young. He's much more powerful than me. Even I, as his elder brother, am far inferior. Chanyang, who chuckled as he lay on the bed. He felt extremely happy when he mentioned this, because he thought of his fourth brother's strength as a Radiant Saint Master. A Class 6 Radiant Saint Master had never appeared in the Kingdom of Jessen, and it was extremely rare on the Tianyuan continent. Ling Long was extremely happy when she saw the happy smile on her son's face. This was because she knew that ever since Jianshan had spoken with Changyang, who alone, her son had truly given up on seeking death. He had regained the vitality of life and planned to live well. Immediately, her gratitude towards Jianshan became even greater. At the same time, in the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jessen, the king of the Kingdom of Jessen held a banquet to entertain the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. There were not many people at the table, only around a dozen. However, aside from the king, everyone else was a peak expert of the Kingdom of Jessen. All the Heaven Saint Masters in the Kingdom of Jessen had gathered here. A banquet of such a high level could not be attended by just anyone. Even the princes and princesses of the Kingdom of Jessen were no exception. During the banquet, all the experts of the Kingdom of Jessen proposed toasts to the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. All of them were extremely respectful and courteous. They were all doing their best to curry favor with the 5 imperial advisors. Although they were all on the same level, their statuses were completely different. The authority they wielded was incomparable as well. On one hand, those who could become imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were all outstanding individuals. It was difficult for them to find an opponent in the same level as them. They could basically challenge experts who were a level higher than them. Coupled with the fact that all 5 of them knew battle skills, their battle prowess had reached a whole new level. This was the reason why the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had such a noble status. Esteemed imperial advisors, I thank the Qin Empire for their help. If the Qin Empire needs our help in any way, the Kingdom of Jessen will definitely do our best to help. Although our Kingdom of Jessen is weak, we can still do our best to help, the King of the Kingdom of Jessen said. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire all spoke politely with smiles on their faces. Since the 5 of them didn't know the relationship between the Imperial Protector and the Kingdom of Jessen, they didn't dare to offend anyone in the banquet. If they offended someone who was related to the Imperial Protector, they would be in serious trouble. The 5 of them followed Jianshan from the Qin Empire to cultivate a good relationship with Jianshan. None of them wanted to make a mistake in this matter. Chapter 441. At this moment, the principal of Kargath Institute, Kafir, suddenly spoke up. Esteemed state advisors, this one has a question that I hope you can answer. Back at the Northern Stronghold, this one seems to have heard that your Empire's Imperial Protector came to save us. May I know which senior this Imperial Protector is? Would you be able to leak this information to us? Perhaps this senior knows our Kingdom of Jessen. Hearing this, everyone's eyes focused on the 5 state advisors of the Qin Empire. Kafir asked the question that was on everyone's mind. This was because they also wanted to know who this Imperial Protector that saved the Kingdom of Jessen was and what his relationship with the Kingdom of Jessen was. The 5 state advisors of the Qin Empire looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. The Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire had a noble status. If it was anyone else who asked them the name of the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire, they would have been dissatisfied. However, they didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction because they wanted to know who the Imperial Protector was on good terms with as soon as possible. Moreover, this way, they could learn more about the identity of the Imperial Protector. The 5 state advisors of the Qin Empire pondered for a moment before Xiao Tian spoke up. Our Imperial Protector's name is Jianshan. Does anyone here know him? A sliver of confusion appeared in everyone's eyes when they heard Jianshan's name. They had never heard of this name before, so it was extremely unfamiliar. Seeing the expressions on everyone's faces, the 5 state advisors of the Qin Empire looked at each other and felt very confused. With their eyesight, they could tell that no one knew the name of the Imperial Protector, Jianshan. This made them very curious. Could it be that the Imperial Protector really had nothing to do with the people of the Kingdom of Jessen? In another magnificent palace of the kingdom of Jesson, the whole palace was bustling with noise. Many people of different ages were sitting inside and eating and drinking excitedly. Not only were there generals who had just returned from the front lines, but there were also many representatives of the major forces in the kingdom of Jesson. Everyone was eating and drinking together. The two princes of the kingdom of Jesson even came out personally to toast the generals who had just returned from a victorious battle. Among them, the one who attracted the most attention was a young man in white robes. He didn't look very old, only around 26 or 27 years old. Although he wasn't a noble, almost everyone with status in the hall would personally come over to drink with him. Even the two princes of the Jesson kingdom would occasionally circle around the young man, conversing with him with an amiable expression. They didn't put on the airs of a prince at all. If an uninformed person were to see this scene, they would probably think that they were very close friends. The young man was Ming Dong. He had originally gone to the western fortress with the people of Chanyang Prefecture. After the battle ended, he originally planned on returning to Lore City with the people of Chanyang Prefecture, but he received an invitation from the kingdom of Jesson. It was difficult for him to turn down such a great invitation, so he could only force himself to come and participate in the celebration. Jianshun, half a year has already passed. You should have come out from the sacred land of Mercenary City. I'll go to Chanyang Prefecture tomorrow and wait for your return. I believe we'll meet again soon. After that, we'll continue to roam the Tianyuan continent as brothers and wipe out all our former enemies one by one, Ming Dong secretly thought. He began to reminisce about the days when he had fought alongside Jianshun. Not only did Ming Dong feel brotherly love for Jianshun, but he also felt gratitude. This was not only because Jianshun had saved his life, but also because Jianshun had assisted him in his current strength. If it were not for Jianshun, it would have been impossible for Ming Dong to come to Mercenary City. It would have been impossible for him to meet his uncle Tian. His fate would have never taken such a drastic turn, allowing him to embark on a path to the heavens. After the celebration, Ming Dong temporarily stayed in the imperial palace under the personal invitation of the two princes and the king of the kingdom of Jesson. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire lost interest in staying after learning that Jianshun had nothing to do with the imperial family of the kingdom of Jesson. As a result, they left the imperial palace after the banquet despite the king's attempts to keep them. With the departure of the 5 Qin Empire imperial advisors, the peak experts no longer had any interest in staying either. They all shot off into the sky. Xiao Dian and the 4 others walked through the bustling streets in luxurious robes. Qing Xiaofan asked, "Where should we go next? Where do we find Sir Imperial Protector?" "To Lore City," Xiao Tian nonchalantly replied. Before we left, Sir Imperial Protector said that he would be staying in Lore City for quite some time. He told us to go there and find him. "All right, but I have a suggestion. It's been a long time since we've come out. Since it's rare for us to come out, why don't we take a stroll? In any case, the war has already calmed down, and with Sir Imperial Protector's strength, he won't encounter any problems. There's nothing for us to do even if we go there," suggested Tian Luo. The 4 of them fell silent for a moment before nodding in agreement. Yes, Tian Luo is right. It's rare for us to come out, and it just so happens that there's nothing for us to do. Let's take a stroll and see what kind of place Sir Imperial Protector's hometown is for it to give birth to such a genius. Lore City, Chanyang Prefecture. A large group of people from the Huayun sect had already gathered at the entrance of Chanyang Prefecture. Within Chanyang Prefecture, there were also several hundred robust men emitting killing intent. The patriarch of Chanyang Prefecture, Changyang Ba, was calmly standing in the center of the courtyard, facing the group of people from the Huayun sect. Behind Changyang Ba were several dozen old men. They were all senior figures from Chanyang Prefecture. Although their faces were covered in wrinkles, their deep eyes occasionally flashed with a cold light. On the other side, with the sect master of the Huayun sect, Cheng Fei, standing behind him were a dozen expressionless people. Their gazes were cold and as sharp as blades. They were all Earth Saint Masters, and a few of them even had scars on their faces that had yet to heal. Changyang Ba, My Huayun sect doesn't want to become enemies with you. However, Chanyang Shoten cut off my son's right arm. This is unforgivable. If you don't give my Huayun sect a satisfactory explanation, we definitely won't let this matter rest. Cheng Fei glared at Chanyang Ba, his gaze incomparably cold. Chanyang Ba coldly snorted. Cheng Fei, I've already thoroughly investigated what happened back then. It was clearly your son, Cheng Mingxiang, who was in the wrong. He heavily injured me, resulting in what happened afterwards. Cheng Mingxiang only has himself to blame. He can't blame anyone else. If you want to blame someone, blame your son for not being skilled enough. He, a great saint, actually had his arm cut off by someone who had just become a saint. Now that Chanyang Prefecture's strength had increased, they no longer feared the Huayun sect. So when facing the Huayun sect, Chanyang Ba was filled with confidence and did not back down in the slightest. Cheng Fei's expression also darkened when he heard Chanyang Ba's words. He said, Chanyang Ba, could it be that your Chanyang Prefecture really wants to start a war with my Huayun sect? Although the ancestor is no longer here, my Chanyang Prefecture is not a family that can be bullied by others. If you really want to force us, then my Chanyang Prefecture will do its best to fight with your Huayun sect. Let's see whether your Huayun sect is stronger or my Chanyang Prefecture is stronger, said Chanyang Ba, his gaze incomparably sharp. With a single glance, anyone could tell that he was not joking. An old man standing behind Chanyang Ba said, That's right. Although the ancestor is no longer here, my Chanyang Prefecture is still not so easy to bully. We can't bury the ancestor's prestige from back then. A few years ago, we already made a mistake. We definitely can't make the same mistake again. Cheng Fei's expression became extremely unsightly. He said, Have you ever thought about the consequences of offending my Huayun sect? For the sake of Chanyang Shoten, you want Chanyang Prefecture to be reduced to a small family? Is that worth it? In Cheng Fei's heart, he did not truly want to have a falling out with the Chanyang Prefecture. Because of the matter of the Northern Fort, he had a clear understanding of Chang Wuji's strength. The one he truly feared was Chang Wuji, not the Chanyang Prefecture. With the strength Chang Wuji had displayed, even if two of the Huayun sect's experts joined hands, they might not necessarily be able to win. Even if my Chanyang Prefecture is reduced to a small family, your Huayun sect won't be much better off. Chanyang Ba coldly sneered. The two sides were in a deadlock for the time being. They both had fear in their hearts because they all understood that the difference in strength between the Chanyang Prefecture and the Huayun sect was not very large. Once they started fighting, both sides' strength would definitely be greatly reduced. They might even lose their current status and be reduced to a small family. After about 4 hours of deadlock, a powerful aura suddenly rapidly approached from behind. In the distant horizon, a small red dot was rapidly approaching. Soon, it arrived above Chanyang Prefecture. It was as if a monarch had descended from the sky, bringing with it an extremely powerful aura. In the end, it stood in front of the Huayun sect's group, facing the people from Chanyang Prefecture. This was an old man wearing a fiery red robe. His hair was white, and his face was covered in wrinkles. He looked extremely old. Seeing this old man, the Huayun sect's sect master, Cheng Fei's expression immediately became excited. He asked in disbelief, Master, you broke through? Chapter 442. Master, you've actually succeeded in breaking through. This is wonderful, truly wonderful. Cheng Fei's face was filled with excitement. His master had actually managed to break through to the Heaven Saint Master realm at such a critical moment. With that, the number of Heaven Saint Masters in the Huayun sect would reach 3. They had already surpassed the number of Heaven Saint Masters. With the addition of the Imperial family, the Huayun sect would become the number 1 power in the Kingdom of Jesson. In Cheng Fei's mind, he had already begun to imagine the future king of the Kingdom of Jesson being incomparably courteous to the Huayun sect. Now that the Huayun sect had gained another Heaven Saint Master, the experts standing behind Cheng Fei were all filled with excitement. They all excitedly congratulated Cheng Fei's master. On the other hand, everyone in the Chanyang Prefecture had extremely grim expressions. The upper echelons of the Chanyang Prefecture all had extremely ugly expressions. Now that the Huayun sect had 3 Heaven Saint Masters, This was definitely not something that the Chanyang prefecture wanted to see. Saya, I never thought that not only would you not die, you would even break through, an old man from the Chanyang prefecture said in a deep voice. Saya was Chung Fei's master. He was an old man who had lived for over 400 years. Due to his ordinary talent, he had spent a very long time cultivating to the 6th cycle of Earth Saint Master. Moreover, he had been stuck at the 6th cycle of Earth Saint Master for several decades, unable to comprehend the energy of the world. Now that he was nearing the end of his life, he had unexpectedly broken through to become a Heaven Saint Master at such a crucial moment. This was truly unexpected. Saya laughed heartily. The heavens have not let me down. Chanyang Yinkong, I never thought that you would still be stuck at the same spot. If you don't work hard, you won't have much of a chance. Oof. The old man from the Chanyang prefecture coldly snorted and no longer said anything. Master, you've come the right time. My son Chung Mingxiang's arm was cut off by someone from Chanyang prefecture. Right now, Chanyang prefecture is shielding that person and making an enemy out of my Hawaiian sect. I hope that master can help my son get revenge. Chung Fei gritted his teeth and said behind Saya, whether or not he could take Chanyang Shoten away from Chanyang prefecture today depended entirely on his master. Saya nodded slightly. I've also heard about Chung Mingxiang's matter. This concerns the face of our Hawaiian sect. Don't worry, I will get justice for you. Immediately, Saya looked at the group of people from Chanyang prefecture and said, You'd better hand him over quickly. Don't force me to make a move. Otherwise, you should know the consequences. The difference between a Heaven Saint Master and an Earth Saint Master was extremely large. Even if he had only just become a Heaven Saint Master, he was still not someone the Earth Saint Masters from Chanyang prefecture could deal with. The faces of the people from Chanyang prefecture became unprecedentedly solemn. Even though they were facing an extremely large amount of pressure, Chanyang Ba still did not shrink back. He said, You want us to hand him over? That's absolutely impossible. A sharp light flashed through Saya's eyes. He immediately snorted coldly, and the aura of a Heaven Saint Master surged out like a tidal wave, viciously pressing down on the people from Chanyang prefecture. Under the pressure of this aura, the Great Saint Master and Saint Master Guard from Chanyang prefecture immediately became pale. They could not help but stagger backwards. Quite a few of the weaker guards even had blood flowing from the corners of their mouths. The aura of a Heaven Saint Master was not something they could endure. Right now, only the dozen or so Earth Saint Masters from Chanyang prefecture were able to remain where they were. All of them gritted their teeth and endured. It was clearly very strenuous for them to resist. Although Chanyang Ba was the patriarch of the clan, he was only a great Saint Master. As a result, he also retreated to the back with a pale face. In Chanyang Hu's room, a strong killing intent appeared in Jinshan's eyes. Although his aunts did not know what was going on outside, Jinshan could clearly see what was going on outside. He definitely could not tolerate the Heaven Saint Master from the Hawaiian sect acting so unbridled in Chanyang prefecture. Jinshan walked out with a gloomy face. However, just as he took a few steps, an arm tightly pulled him back. Immediately after, he heard the familiar voice of his mother, Bai Yuntian. Xianger, where are you going? Listen to your mother and stay here. Don't go anywhere. Bai Yuntian's face was filled with worry. In the past, she had been looking forward day and night to finally see her son again. Now, the two of them had only been together for less than a day before the Hawaiian sect came knocking on their door. This made Bai Yuntian extremely worried that she would lose her beloved son again. Mother, your son is no longer afraid of the Hawaiian sect. Let me go. Jinshan said. No. Bai Yuntian's reply was resolute and decisive. There was no room for discussion. Her arms were like pliers as she tightly held onto Jinshan's arm. She sorrowfully said, Xianger, if you must listen to your mother, then obediently stay here and don't go out. Your father and the others will deal with the Hawaiian sect. Mother, your son is no longer as weak as he was a few years ago. The Hawaiian sect's people are unable to harm your son. Jinshan argued. Xianger, don't say such foolish things. How could you possibly be a match for the Hawaiian sect? Just listen to your mother and obediently stay here. Don't go anywhere. Bai Yuntian's voice was filled with pleading. Tears were already flowing out of her eyes. Looking at the pleading expression on his mother's face, Jian Chun sighed inside. His heart had completely softened. He couldn't bear to make his mother sad. So he said, "All right, Mother, I'll stay here and not go anywhere." Outside the courtyard, Saya coldly smiled as he looked at the people from Changyang Prefecture who were bitterly resisting his aura. He said in a deep voice, "I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to hand him over or not? If you want to take him away from our Changyang Prefecture, then don't even think about it. My Changyang Prefecture's dignity cannot be blasphemed. If you want to start a war, then go ahead." Changyang Ba coldly said. Although the sudden appearance of 3 Heaven Saint Masters from the Huayuan sect made him feel a lot of pressure, his expression did not reveal the slightest trace of fear. "It seems that if I don't make you suffer, you won't become obedient." A sharp light flashed through Saya's eyes. He clenched his hands in front of him, and the fire elemental energy in the surroundings immediately gathered in his hands. He was clearly planning on taking action. Everyone attacked together. The dozen or so Earth Saint Masters from Changyang Prefecture all roared out. Saint force surged out of their bodies and rapidly condensed into various weapons in their hands. They then all charged at Saya at the same time. The dozen or so saint weapons with surging saint force formed a large net of energy in the air that enveloped Saya. Saya had just broken through to Heaven's Saint Master. Not only was the speed at which he gathered the energy of the world very rusty, it was also extremely slow. Looking at the dozen or so saint weapons that enveloped him, he could only give up on gathering the energy of the world. He immediately took out his own saint weapon and quickly swung it out. He began to fight with the dozen or so Earth Saint Masters from Changyang Prefecture. As soon as the two sides clashed, a powerful shockwave of energy erupted, turning the courtyard of Changyang Prefecture into a mess. However, Heaven Saint Masters were still Heaven Saint Masters after all. There was an unbridgeable gap between them and Earth Saint Masters. Saya easily repelled the dozen Earth Saint Masters from Changyang Prefecture by himself. However, the group of old men from Changyang Prefecture did not stop because of this. They all roared out, and an even more powerful aura erupted from their bodies. Their battle prowess instantly tripled. They then charged at Saya once more. The dozen or so saint weapons enveloped Saya, sealing off all his paths of escape. Sensing the sudden increase in battle prowess of the old men from the Huayuan sect, a trace of surprise appeared in Saya's eyes. His face also became much more solemn. The saint weapon in his hand surged with energy as he swung it out with lightning speed, engaging in a great battle with the old men. The sound of weapons colliding continuously rang out. Every time they collided, a powerful shockwave of energy would spread out in all directions, turning the scenery in front of Changyang Prefecture into a mess. Although the battle was intense, the dozen or so experts from Changyang Prefecture were actually able to temporarily stop Saya, who was a Heaven Saint Master. Seeing that he was actually being entangled by a dozen Earth Saint Masters in front of so many people from the Huayuan sect, Saya felt that he had lost some face. He immediately roared out, "Since you're so stubborn, then don't blame me for being impolite." Saya no longer held back and immediately attacked with his full strength. He completely erupted with the strength of a Heaven Saint Master, directly slashing at the saint weapon in the hands of one of the experts. The powerful force behind the slash caused the expert to vomit blood and fly back. Afterward, the old men from Changyang Prefecture were all injured by Saya. Blood spurted out of their mouths, and in the blink of an eye, the people who had been evenly matched with Saya were all defeated. Changyang Ba's face became extremely ugly. A Heaven Saint Master was far stronger than an Earth Saint Master. Even with a dozen or so people working together, they were still not his opponent. These Earth Saint Masters were already the strongest force that Changyang Prefecture could bring out. If even they could not stop Saya, then Changyang Prefecture really did not have any power left to contend against a Heaven Saint Master. Saya coldly smiled as he glanced at Changyang, Hu, and the old men. Without even turning his head, he said, "Chang Fei, directly send people to capture them. If there are any obstructions, don't hold back." Yes, master. The Huayan sect master was overjoyed. He immediately arranged for a group of people to search Chanyang Prefecture. In Chanyanghu's room, Jianshan's handsome face had already become ashen. The killing intent in his eyes was extremely intense. Just as he was about to break free from his mother's arms and charge out, his face suddenly froze. He gradually calmed down. At this moment, just as the people the Huayun sect master had arranged for were about to enter Chanyang Prefecture to search, a long whistle suddenly rang out from the distance. The sound was vast and mighty, spreading across the vast horizon. A fiery red figure was flying over from the distance at an extremely fast speed. The enormous presence he gave off caused the clouds in the sky to violently surge. Saya's face suddenly changed. He said in a low voice, "Oh no, Chang Wuji has returned." Chapter 443. Saya's words caused the expressions of the Huayun sect's experts to change. They were incomparably fearful of Chang Wuji because they had already heard of Chang Wuji's display of strength at the Northern Fort. He had used a Heaven-tier battle skill to kill 2 Heaven Saint Masters in a row. That kind of battle prowess made them feel fear. Soon, an azure-robed old man flew over from the distance, slowly descending from the sky with a powerful aura. In the end, he stood in front of the Chanyang Prefecture's group, blocking the Huayan sect's people. "Changbo, you've finally returned." Chanyangba looked at the old man with pleasant surprise. He was very emotional. Currently, the Chanyang Prefecture only had Changbo as a Heaven Saint Master. If Changbo hadn't returned, then no one in the Chanyang Prefecture would have been able to stop Saya. In the end, the Huayan sect would have searched the entire mansion. Not only would they be unable to protect their 4th son who had just returned, but the Chanyang Prefecture would also lose all face. At this crucial moment, Changbo's sudden return was like a life-saving straw for Changyangba. His heart that had been in his throat completely relaxed. Even the injured old men let out a sigh of relief. There was finally someone who could deal with the enemy's Heaven Saint Master. Uncle Chang's expression was very unsightly. He glanced at the courtyard that had been destroyed because of the battle. When his gaze landed on more than a dozen pale and injured old men, a strong killing intent involuntarily flashed in his eyes. He asked in a low voice, "Family head, what's going on?" Changyangba walked over and said, "Changbo, yesterday Xiang was suddenly returned. The Huayan sect received the news and specially came to capture Xiang." "What? The 4th young master has returned?" Changbo's face was filled with shock. Ever since Jianshan had left Chanyang Prefecture, there had been no news of him. During that time, Changbo had suspected more than once that Jianshan had met with a mishap. However, he never thought that the 4th young master would actually return. Changyangba nodded and smiled. "I don't know where Xiang has been hiding for the past few years. He's been missing for several years, but fortunately, nothing has happened to him. He suddenly returned yesterday. It's good that he's back. It's good that he's back." Changbo's expression was also filled with excitement. Not only had Jianshan displayed outstanding talent from a young age and received Changbo's expectations, but he had also watched Jianshan grow up. Their relationship was not ordinary. Changbo slowly suppressed the excitement in his heart. His eyes returned to their previous sharpness as he gloomily looked at the Huayan sect. He was indescribably furious as he roared. "Although Master is no longer here, my Chanyang Prefecture is not a place where anyone can bully. All of you from the Huayan sect, get the hell out of here." Uncle Chang made a grabbing motion in the air, and Yuan Qi gathered at a terrifying speed. Then he pushed out with both hands, and an incomparably powerful energy surged out, forming a powerful shockwave that shot towards the Huayan sect's group. In front of this powerful energy, the Huayan sect's experts were unable to resist at all. They were all blown away, falling out of the door. The dozen or so Earth Saint Masters were unable to resist at all. Even Saya, who had just stepped into the realm of Heaven's Saint Masters, found it difficult to resist this powerful energy. His feet left 2 deep marks on the ground as he was pushed out of the door. Changbo's control over this energy was extremely good. It was completely restrained, not causing any damage to the surroundings. He had already stepped into the realm of Heaven's Saint Masters for many years. His strength was not something the newcomer like Saya could compare to. Saya's expression became very ugly when he saw that he was unable to resist the energy that Chang Wuji had casually sent out. At the same time, he was shocked by Chang Wuji's strength. Changbo had always kept a very low profile. He was not even ranked among the top 10 experts of the Kingdom of Jessen. Outsiders did not even know about him. Even the guards of Changyang Prefecture did not know that Changbo, who was only a housekeeper, was actually a hidden expert. If it were not for the invasion of the 4 countries that exposed his strength, perhaps only the core members of Changyang Prefecture would know about him. Chang Wuji's gaze landed on Saya. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. I remember that you're called Saya. I never thought that you would have broken through to the realm of Heaven's Saint Master. Since you've injured the people of my Changyang Prefecture, don't blame me for being impolite. The dignity of my Changyang Prefecture will not be blasphemed. As he spoke, Chang Wuji's right hand grabbed at the air. The energy in the surroundings immediately began to surge once more. However, this time, he controlled the element of fire, which was known to be the most powerful of the 6 elements. Chang Wuji gathered the elemental energy extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had condensed into a sword of fire. He then threw it at Saya, who was outside the door. Saya's expression immediately changed. He was definitely not Chang Wuji's opponent with his strength as a newly advanced Heaven Saint Master. Without any hesitation, he immediately drew his saint weapon and used his full strength to receive the sword of fire. Boom! With a violent boom, a powerful shockwave of energy erupted outside the door, spreading out in all directions. At the same time, a faint layer of fiery red light appeared outside the entrance of Changyang Prefecture, protecting the walls of the Changyang Prefecture from being damaged by the shockwave of energy. Saya vomited a large mouthful of blood as his face instantly paled. He staggered backwards. Although they were both Heaven's Saint Masters, the difference in strength was still too great. He could not even receive a casual attack from Chang Wuji. The disciples of the Huayan sect who were closer to the entrance of Changyang Prefecture were also affected. They were all swallowed by the shockwave of fire. Over 100 people were swallowed by the waves of fire. Several dozen people lost their lives in the sea of fire. Only a few people managed to escape, but they were all in horrible condition. Their clothes had been completely burned away. In the blink of an eye, the Huayan sect that had originally held the upper hand had been reduced to such a state because of Chang Wuji's appearance. Chang Wuji's strength was so great that the 1,000 people of the Huayan sect did not even dare to breathe loudly. Their expressions were all extremely ugly. Suddenly, 2 more powerful presences flew over from afar. They approached very quickly and slowly landed outside the main entrance of the Changyang clan. Both of them were old men in their 70s. They wore long white robes, had white hair, and a youthful complexion. Their eyes were bright and full of expression. However, their complexions were very ugly at this moment. Their brows were tightly knitted together. However, the appearance of these 2 old men caused the upper echelon of the Huayan sect to rejoice. They immediately knelt on one knee and called out, "Greetings, Grand Elders!" Over 1,000 Huayan sect disciples all knelt on one knee and called out the same words. Their voices overlapped, forming a huge sound wave that could shake the heavens and earth. It was a spectacular sight. The 2 Huayan sect Grand Elders frowned at this scene. One of them asked, "Cheng Fei, what is going on?" Afterwards, the Huayan sect master told the 2 Grand Elders everything that had happened. Hearing this, the 2 Grand Elders sank into a short period of silence. If it was before, the Huayan sect definitely would not have let the Changyang Prefecture treat the Huayan sect in such a manner. They would have long since fought to the death. But because of the matter of the northern fort, Chang Wuji's hidden strength had been exposed. That made the 2 Grand Elders feel extremely fearful. They no longer dared to look down on the Changyang Prefecture like before. Killing 2 Heaven Saint Masters in a row was not something an ordinary person could do. Furthermore, Chong Wuji's Heaven Tier battle skill also gave the two Huayun sect Great Elders a great deal of pressure. One of the Grand Elders looked at Chong Wuji with an unsightly expression and said, "Chong Wuji, you killed several dozen of my Huayun sect's disciples. Aren't you a little too vicious?" Chong Wuji coldly snorted and said, "Not only did your Huayun sect destroy my Changyang prefecture, you even injured several experts of my Changyang prefecture. How do you want to settle this debt?" Chong Wuji strode forward, emitting a powerful battle intent as he pressured the two Huayun sect Grand Elders. He seemed ready to fight at the slightest disagreement. The two Grand Elders' expressions changed at the same time, but they did not back down. One of them immediately explained, "I also heard about what happened back then. It all started because of Changyang Shoten. Changyang Shoten cut off the right arm of the next sect master of the Huayun sect, Cheng Mingxiang. If we really want to calculate it, it is your Changyang prefecture's fault. My Huayun sect coming to ask for Cheng Mingxiang is only natural." Chapter 444. The two heavenly elders of the Huayun sect were greatly infuriated by Chong Wuji's words. Chong Wuji's words were basically cursing the next sect master, Cheng Mingxiang, for being useless. "Chong Wuji, our Huayun sect will remember today's matter. Let's go," one of the Grand Elders said in a deep voice before leading the Huayun sect's people away, their faces covered in dirt. The current Changyang prefecture was no longer the old Changyang prefecture. Because of Chong Wuji, the two Grand Elders of the Huayun sect didn't dare to be too impudent. Once they fought with Chong Wuji, even if they worked together, they didn't have absolute confidence in winning. What they feared the most was Chong Wuji's Heaven Tier battle skill. Although the Huayun sect had gained another Heaven Saint Master, he had only just stepped into the Heaven Saint realm. While he could bully a few Earth Saint Masters, he wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from a veteran Heaven Saint Master like Chong Wuji. The difference between each cycle of Heaven Saint Masters was enormous. Chong Wuji didn't make things too difficult for the Huayun sect. Changyang Prefecture's current strength was comparable to the Huayun sect's. If they really fought, both sides would suffer heavy losses. That was something no one wanted to see. "Suda, immediately call people to tidy up the estate," Chong Wuji said to a bald old man behind him. "Yes." The old man called Suda respectfully replied before immediately retreating. He was also the steward of the Changyang Prefecture. Changyang Prefecture had two stewards. Changbo was the steward while Suda was the assistant steward. He assisted Changbo in managing all the affairs of the clan. Changbo arrived in front of the old men and said, "Elders, you should all go and treat your injuries." The old men exchanged a few words before leaving. The several hundred guards of the Changyang Prefecture also dispersed under Changyang Ba's orders. In the blink of an eye, everything returned to normal. Only the mess at the entrance was proof of what had happened. After everyone left, Changbo lightly sighed. A gratified smile appeared on his face as he said, "I never thought that the fourth young master would still be alive. This is truly something worth celebrating. Patriarch, bring me to see the fourth young master. After not seeing him for a few years, I'm very curious to see just what kind of cultivation his talent has reached." Changyang Ba chuckled. "Xiang is in a who's room. Changbo, let's go." Afterwards, Chong Wuji and Changyang Ba walked toward Changyang Hu's room. Apart from the three women, only Jianshan was still standing in the middle of the room. He was very eye-catching. The moment they entered the room, Chong Wuji's gaze immediately fell on Jianshan. His expression immediately froze, and his mouth immediately opened wide. His face was filled with disbelief. Changyang Ba did not notice Changbo's expression. Looking at the restless women, he immediately comforted them. "The Huayun sect's people have already retreated. Don't worry, Xiang is fine. Right now, the Huayun sect won't dare to offend us." Hearing this, Bai Yuntian let out a sigh of relief. Her heart finally relaxed. As for Jinshan's second aunt, Yu Fengyan, and first aunt, Ling Long, the two women also let out sighs of relief. "Greetings, Changbo." Jinshan clasped his hands towards Changbo from afar. Seeing the shock on Changbo's face, the treacherous official also revealed an indescribable smile. Jinshan's call of Changbo caused Chang Wuji to return to his senses. Looking at Jianshan with shock, he said in shock, "You really are the fourth young master." Looking at that familiar face, Chang Wuji was extremely shocked. He could not help but recall the scene at the border fortress of the Pingyang Kingdom. An extremely young and mysterious expert had fought against 5 Heaven Saint Masters by himself. In the end, he had personally beheaded 4 of them. The last Heaven Saint Master from the Qingan Kingdom had also lost an arm and fled miserably. And this mysterious expert appearance was clearly the same as the person in front of him. Chang Yangba could also hear that something was wrong with Chang Wuji's tone. Looking back at Chang Wuji in confusion, his expression immediately became strange. He really could not understand why the usually calm Chang Bo would suddenly lose his composure like this. "Chang Bo, what's wrong?" Chang Yangba asked in confusion. He was extremely puzzled by Chang Wuji's expression. Jian Qin's mother, Bai Yun Tian, and his 2 aunts looked at each other. Their faces were filled with doubt. Uncle Chang's loss of composure had shocked the 3 of them. This was the first time they had seen Uncle Chang reveal such an expression since they had met him. Jianshan faintly smiled and nodded. "Chang Bo, I am Xiangtian. Don't you even recognize me?" Impossible. How is this possible?" Chang Bo stared blankly at Jianshan. The mysterious expert who had killed 4 Heaven Saint Masters by himself was actually the 4th young master of Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten. This was very difficult for him to accept because when Chanyang Shoten ran away from home at the age of 15, he was only a basic saint. Now, only 5 years had passed, and Chanyang Shoten had already become a Heaven Saint Master. This was just too shocking. "Chang Bo, what are you saying?" Chang Yangba asked again. He was completely confused by Chang Bo's words. Uncle Chang took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed his shock. He slowly said, "Patriarch, do you still remember when I told you that a mysterious expert had beheaded 4 Heaven Saint Masters from the Pingyang Kingdom back in the northern fort?" Chang Yangba nodded and did not say anything. He waited for Chang Bo to continue. Chang Wuji was silent for a while before continuing with a trembling voice. This mysterious expert was actually the 4th young master. "What?" Chang Yangba immediately cried out in surprise. His face was filled with disbelief as he asked, "Chang Bo, what did you just say?" "The mysterious expert who beheaded 4 Heaven Saint Masters in the Pingyang Kingdom was the 4th young master," Chang Bo said again. He spoke very slowly so that everyone in the room could hear him clearly. As soon as Chang Bo finished speaking, the entire room fell into a strange silence. Everyone's eyes were focused on Jianshan. Even Chan Yang, who was lying on the bed, turned his head to look at Jianshan. His face was filled with disbelief. Bai Yun Tian was the first to return to her senses. She laughed and said, "Chang Bo, I think you got the wrong person. Xiang is only 21 years old this year. He's not as powerful as you say." Chang Yangba looked at Jianshan and asked with a trembling voice, "Xiang is what Chang Bo said true? You were the one who beheaded the 4 Heaven Saint Masters in the Pingyang Kingdom?" Chang Yangba's eyes were filled with hope. He also did not dare to believe that his 4th son had such strength. However, he could not help but ask. He also believed that Chang Bo would not speak without thinking. Jianshan nodded and said, "Chang Bo is right. Father, I was the one who killed the 4 Heaven Saint Masters in the Pingyang Kingdom." Jianshan's calm words made everyone in the room speechless. A young man who was not even in his 20s was actually able to kill Heaven Saint Masters. It was truly shocking. How is this possible? "Xiang, you were only 15 years old when you left Chanyang Prefecture. You had just condensed a saint weapon and became a saint. It has only been 6 years since then. How did you become so powerful?" Bai Yun Tian cried out in surprise. Her beautiful eyes were wide open. "Xiangtian, how did you kill those Heaven Saint Masters?" Yu Fengyan also asked in shock. "Xiang, just what level of strength have you reached? Even I can't see through you." Chang Yangba's voice trembled. He was unable to hide the excitement in his voice. The joy in his heart had reached an indescribable level. Jianshan pondered for a moment and said, "Father, Mother, due to some fortuitous encounters, my path of cultivation has undergone a huge change. I have completely broken away from the hierarchy of the Tian Yuan continent. My current strength should be at the level of a Heaven Saint Master because I can already control the energy of the world. Jinshin was unable to accurately determine his own strength. The reason why he could easily kill Heaven Saint Masters was because of the origin energy of the sword spirits. With the origin energy of the sword spirits, Jinshin did not even fear a sixth cycle Heaven Saint Master. However, without the origin energy of the sword spirits, Jinshin could only rely on his ability to control everything. It would take him quite a bit of effort to kill a Heaven Saint Master. Heaven Saint Master, Heaven Saint Master. Xiang have you really become a Heaven Saint Master? Bai Yuntian's heart was filled with great joy. She could not help but tremble. Her son was a Heaven Saint Master. This shocked and excited her at the same time. Jinshin's two aunts were shocked as well. They both looked at Jinshin like they were looking at a monster. Chapter 445. Changbo slowly exhaled as he sighed emotionally. The fourth young master's talent has always been extraordinary since he was young. I once looked forward to what the fourth young master could achieve in the future, but I never thought that in just 6 years, the fourth young master would go from a new saint to a peak expert, like a Heaven Saint Master. Even with the entire continent in perspective, such a genius is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Ha. The person who was most excited after hearing Changbo's praise was Changyangba. He was unable to suppress his surging emotions as he laughed aloud. 2 beads of tears slowly flowed from his eyes. This is just too unbelievable. Xiangtian is actually a Heaven Saint Master. Let's quickly spread this news. Our Chanyang Prefecture has such a genius. Even the imperial family will want to curry favor with us, Jinshin's second aunt, Yu Fengyan, emotionally said. Hearing this, Jian Chun hurriedly said, Second aunt, it's best if we don't spread this matter. I don't want too many people to know. A 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master was just too shocking. If this news were spread, it would probably spread across the entire continent very quickly. At that time, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Jianchun did not want to become the center of attention either. The fourth young master is right. It's best if we don't spread this news. We should hide it for as long as we can. If the large organizations that stand at the peak of the continent learn about the fourth young master's talent, no one can predict what will happen in the future. They might try to rope him in, or they might do something that is detrimental to the fourth young master, Changbo said. He was rather stern. Changyangba also realized this. He slowly calmed down and sternly said, Changbo is right. It's best that we keep this news to ourselves. Don't spread it. Although this will bring glory to our Chanyang Prefecture, it will also bring endless trouble to Xiang'er. Jinshin's mother, Bai Yuntian, paled in fright when she heard this. No one cared more about her child than she did. Jinshin's 2 aunts also became stern. They understood that a man's wealth was his own ruin. In their eyes, Jinshin had already become a precious gem. Jinshin did not really care about this issue after hearing Changbo and his father's words. He knew his own strength extremely well. As long as he did not come across a saint ruler, he would not be in too much danger. Even if a saint ruler wanted to move against him, the other imperial protector of the Qin Empire would not just sit by and do nothing with his identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. In the kingdom of Jessen's imperial palace, the plainly dressed king and the principal of Kargath Academy, Kafir, sat in a pavilion in the garden. Imperial uncle, who do you think this imperial protector of the Qin Empire, Jinshin, is? Why did he come from so far away to help our kingdom of Jessen repel the allied army? Although our kingdom of Jessen is rich in territory, it is not enough to catch the eye of the Qin Empire. Moreover, the distance between us and the Qin Empire is just too great. The king of the kingdom of Jessen asked the question that was on his mind. He had thought about this question for a long time, but he still could not figure it out. Kafir shook his head. I've never heard of the name Jinshin either. I'm also very confused as to why the Qin Empire would suddenly help our kingdom of Jessen. They came from so far away to help us fend off our enemies. From this, we can tell that the imperial protector of the Qin Empire has some sort of relationship with our kingdom of Jessen. The king of the kingdom of Jessen furrowed his brows. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he asked softly, "Imperial uncle, do you think this has something to do with the ancestor of the Chanyang Empire?" A gleam of light flashed through Kaffir's eyes as well. At this moment, a guard quickly ran in from outside and knelt down on one knee. "Your Majesty, this is an urgent letter from Lore City." The king's expression changed when he heard that it was news from Lore City. He said, "Bring it up." The guard immediately stepped forward and respectfully handed the letter to the king. The king opened the letter and read it. A sliver of surprise appeared in his eyes as he murmured, "I never thought that he would still be alive." Kaffir's expression changed when he heard that. He said in surprise, "Don't tell me that the ancestor of the Chanyang Empire has returned. If it's him, then the matter of the Qin Empire makes sense." The king shook his head and handed the letter to Kaffir. After reading the contents of the letter, Kaffir's face was filled with surprise as he said, "It's actually Chanyang Shoten. I never thought that Chanyang Shoten would actually return alive. After he left Chanyang Prefecture, there was no news of him at all. Moreover, the people of Chanyang Prefecture sent out a large number of people to search for him, but they were unable to find any clues. I originally thought that he had met with some mishap, but I never thought that he would actually return on his own. How shocking." A smile appeared on the king's face as he said, "This Chanyang Shoten really came back at the right time. However, this Chanyang Shoten really hid his strength well. If it weren't for the matter of the northern fort, I'm afraid that none of us would have known that he was so strong. Now that his strength has been completely exposed, the Hawaiian sect probably won't dare to treat Chanyang Prefecture the same way they did a few years ago. Now that Chanyang Shoten can be considered safe." Kaffir nodded as he thought back to the time when Chanyang Shoten had just broken through to the Saint Realm. He murmured, "This child Chanyang Shoten's talent is truly extraordinary. If he is given time, his future will be limitless. We must nurture him well." A palace maid walked over from the distance and bowed slightly as she softly said, "Reporting to your Majesty, the envoys of the Blue Wind Kingdom, the Antilles Kingdom, the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, and the Pingyang Kingdom have all arrived at the Imperial Palace. They are currently waiting in the hall." "Understood. You may leave." The king waved his hand as he indifferently said, "Yes, your Majesty." The palace maid immediately retreated. The Qin Empire's deterrence is truly great. These four kingdoms have all been greatly frightened by the Qin Empire. "Imperial uncle, I'll leave first. I'll see what kind of compensation the envoys of the four kingdoms have to offer." Chanyang Prefecture. By now, news of the fourth young master's return had already spread throughout the prefecture. Even the other three families of Lore City had received the news. The family heads of the three families immediately brought congratulatory gifts to pay a visit. Although Chanyang Prefecture was one of the four great families of Lore City, only a few core members knew that Chanyang Prefecture was the strongest in Lore City. That was because Chanyang Prefecture had already stood tall in Lore City for several hundred years, while the other three families were only rising stars. It was only because Chanyang Prefecture had always kept a low profile that Chanyang Prefecture was seen as an equal power to the four great families in the eyes of the commoners. Chanyang Ba personally received the three family heads. Even Chang Bo personally came out, causing the three family heads to feel extremely honored. Although Chang Bo was a Heaven Saint Master, he did not have the slightest arrogance of a Heaven Saint Master. He completely regarded himself as the chief steward of Chanyang Prefecture and did all the things that a steward should do. In front of Chanyang Ba, he even referred to himself as an old servant. The three family heads had come to pay a visit mainly in hopes of having their children marry in a Chanyang Prefecture. However, when Chanyang Ba told them that their fourth son had already been engaged to Princess Galan a few years ago, the three family heads were all disappointed. They then stayed in the prefecture for a while, chatting with Chanyang Ba for a while before leaving. That afternoon, Jianshan walked out of Chanyang Prefecture. After passing through a few streets, he arrived at the inn where Shun Fong and her son were temporarily staying. He then brought the two of them out of the inn and walked towards Chanyang Prefecture. "Greetings to the fourth young master." The guards at the entrance immediately greeted Jianshin. Right now, almost all the guards in Chanyang Prefecture recognized the fourth young master who had been away for a few years. Jianshin nodded slightly and brought Xin Fang and her son into the courtyard with their heads held high. He temporarily brought Xin Fang and her son to the guest hall and called for 2 maids to scout. Afterwards, he directly went to see Changbo and asked Changbo to properly take care of the mother and son. He also told Changbo about his relationship with them. When Changbo heard that the husband of the couple had already lost his life to save Jianshin, his expression immediately became serious. He personally went to take care of Xin Fang and her son's identity and told this matter to Chanyang Ba and Bai Yintian. After Jianshin's parents found out about the relationship between Jianshin and the mother and son, they immediately put down what they were doing and personally went to receive the mother and son. Along the way, they asked about their well-being with an expression of indescribable gratitude. Since then, Xin Fang and her son temporarily stayed in Chanyang Prefecture. Their status was not ordinary. However, Jianshin did not disclose the news of Uncle Kendall's death to Xin Fang and her son. Outside the courtyard of Chanyang Prefecture, Jianshin and Changbo were strolling. Jianshin suddenly asked, "Changbo, is there any way to restore a person whose divine weapon was destroyed?" Changbo shook his head and said, "No, at least I haven't heard of it." "Fourth young master, is it because of Qin Shao-san?" Jianshin sighed softly. He said, "Qin Shao-san was harmed by me. If his problem is not solved, I will not be able to forgive him." Changbo fell silent for a while before saying, "Fourth young master, the Tianyuan continent is very large. There are all sorts of treasures. The domains we have seen are only the tip of the iceberg. Although I do not know if there is anything on the Tianyuan continent that can restore a person whose divine weapon was destroyed, that does not prove that there is absolutely no such thing." Jianshin fell silent. If he could not restore Qin Shao-san, he would never be able to forgive himself. Not only was Qin Shao-san the son of Uncle Kendall, he was also the one who had caused him to become like this. "Changbo, I need to leave for a while. The matter with the Huayan sect should be dealt with," Jianshin said expressionlessly. His voice was very calm, and no one could tell what he was feeling. Chapter 446. Fourth young master, if you do this, then your strength will definitely be exposed. Although it will bring you a moment of glory, this old servant is worried that it will bring you a series of troubles. Changbo frowned and said with some worry, "Changbo, you don't have to worry about this problem. I have a way to deal with it." Jianshin's tone was very calm, as if he didn't care about Changbo's worries at all. Seeing Jianshin's confident expression, although Changbo didn't know what Jianshin was relying on, at least he was relieved. After muttering to himself for a while, he said, "Fourth young master, let this old servant accompany you." Jianshin shook his head and said, "Changbo, I can deal with the Huayan sect's matter by myself. I should be clear about my strength. I already have this ability." Hearing this, Changbo couldn't help but think of the scene of Jianshin displaying his strength in the Pingyang Kingdom stronghold. He immediately revealed a gratified smile and said, "Now that fourth young master has become a peak expert who can hold up against the side, this old servant won't interfere. Changbo, I'll have to trouble you to tell my parents. I will be back soon." When talking about his parents, Jianshin's eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of gentleness. "I will tell the fourth madam and the family head. Fourth young master, go early and come back early." Jianshin nodded, and with a thought, the yuan qi of heaven and earth suddenly surged crazily. A layer of strong and powerful wind element wrapped around Jianshin's body. Then Jianshin stomped his feet on the ground, and like a cannonball, his body turned into a light blue phantom and shot into the sky like lightning. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the vast expanse of white clouds. Seeing Jianshin disappear into the clouds, Changbo's face revealed a strange expression and muttered, "Strange. When we were at the Pingyang Kingdom stronghold, I clearly saw the fourth young master control the fire element. How can he control the wind element at the same time? Could it be that the fourth young master can control both wind and fire elements at the same time?" Changbo raised his head and stared at the vast expanse of white clouds for a moment. In the end, he let out a long sigh and said to himself, "The fourth young master's achievements have far exceeded my expectations. It seems that it won't be long before the Chanyang Prefecture enters the ranks of the top clans because of the fourth young master. I wonder if the master will be able to come back. If he knew that our Chanyang Prefecture had such an outstanding descendant, I wonder how happy he would be." Afterwards, Changbo found Chanyang Ba and told him the news of Jinshan's departure. After Chanyang Ba heard of this matter, his eyebrows immediately knitted together. He said with some worry, "Changbo, will Xiang be okay if he goes alone?" Changbo shook his head and said, "No, I personally saw the fourth young master's strength. Even the four heaven saint masters of the Pingyang Kingdom and the Qingan Kingdom's Qianyin sect were unable to harm the fourth young master at all, let alone the Huayan sect. I just don't know how Xiang plans to deal with the Huayan sect. According to what you said, Xiang strength seems to be able to easily destroy the Huayan sect. Back then, the Huayan sect forced Xiang to leave for a few years. Xiang resentment towards the Huayan sect must be extremely strong. Do you think that Xiang will really go overboard and destroy the Huayan sect?" Chanyang Ba's eyebrows tightly knitted together as he voiced his worry. Hearing this, Changbo was slightly stunned. Soon after, his expression also changed. He said, "Crap, I actually didn't think of this. With the fourth young master's strength, he does indeed have the ability to destroy the Huayan sect. But our kingdom of Jessin has just gone through a great battle. Not only is our national strength weak, but we have also lost 3 Heaven Saint Masters. Our strength is far from what it was before. If the Huayan sect is destroyed by the 4th Young Master, then our kingdom of Jessin's strength will definitely fall into a period of decline. It will take us at least 100 years to recover." That's right. If Xiang really does kill all the experts of the Huayan sect, then this matter will be difficult to deal with. Right now, our kingdom of Jessin can't afford to lose a Heaven Saint Master. Chanyang Ba's expression became somewhat solemn. Whether the kingdom of Jessin could continue to develop or not completely depended on the support of Heaven Saint Masters. This was because Heaven Saint Masters were the spiritual pillars of every kingdom. They were the symbol of strength. Even the loss of one would be a great blow to the kingdom. Moreover, the first sect master of the Huayan sect was one of the founding heroes of the kingdom of Jessin. He had a great amount of contributions, and his status was extraordinary. If the people of Chanyang Prefecture were to destroy the Huayan sect, then it would indeed be unreasonable. Several thousand meters in the air, Jinshan flew through the white clouds at high speed. The thick layer of clouds completely covered his body. He did not bring the white tiger with him this time. He had fed the white tiger several heavenly resources the night before. With the speed at which the white tiger digested the medicinal energy, it would take at least 2 or 3 days for it to wake up. The Huayan sect was over 4,000 kilometers away from Lore City. It was located on one of the most famous mountains in the kingdom of Jessin, Mount Tianhua. The Huayan sect had an extremely important position in the kingdom of Jessin. It was the strongest power in the kingdom of Jessin aside from the imperial family. If their newly promoted Heaven Saint Master was included, then the Huayan sect was fully deserving of being called the strongest power in the kingdom of Jessin. Even the imperial family was suppressed by them. The Huayan sect had existed in the kingdom of Jessin for several hundred years. When the kingdom of Jessin had just been founded, the Huayan sect and the Chanyang Prefecture had both been established at the same time. The founder of the Huayan sect, the ancestor of the Chanyang Prefecture, and the first principal of the Kargath Institute were all founding heroes of the kingdom of Jessin. After 4 hours of flying, Jinshan finally arrived at Mount Tianhua. He landed 5 kilometers away and slowly walked toward the Huayan sect. The large group of people from the Huayan sect had only just returned in the morning. Everyone was very busy. A large number of disciples were hurriedly shuttling through the Huayan sect. However, there were still 10 disciples standing guard at the towering entrance. They were divided into 2 groups and were in charge of guarding the entrance. Jinshan puffed out his chest and walked toward the Huayan sect with large strides. When he was 30 meters away from the entrance, two disciples immediately stopped him and arrogantly asked, "Who are you? Why have you come to our Huayin sect?" The news of Saya becoming a Heaven Saint Master had already spread throughout the Huayin sect. Now that the Huayin sect had 3 Heaven Saint Masters, it was truly the strongest power in the Kingdom of Jesson. Because of this, the ordinary disciples of the Huayin sect had become much more arrogant than before. They did not place anyone in their eyes. Chapter 447. The loud noise at the gate alarmed the disciples who were busy near the gate. Immediately, many disciples put down the things in their hands and quickly ran toward the gate. Jianshan stepped over the collapsed entrance of the Huayin sect and walked in neither hurriedly nor slowly. Grabbing at the air with both hands, the surrounding yuan qi once more began to surge. It gathered in his hands an inconceivable speed, quickly condensing into 2 fiery red swords that emitted heaven-burning flames. With a shake of his hands, he shot them toward a large hall in front of him. Boom! Following a huge explosion, the large hall was swallowed by a huge wave of flames. The entire hall collapsed and was char-black. The Huayin sect's buildings were completely made of granite. This kind of stone was very resistant to fire and would not burn. Originally, Jianshan had wanted to use the method he had used on Yangji Zone to burn down the Huayin sect. But the Huayin sect's buildings made Jianshan give up on that idea. This huge explosion alarmed the entire Huayin sect. The fiery light that filled the sky was extremely dazzling, illuminating half of the sky and attracting even more people's attention. Immediately, all of the Huayin sect's disciples began to rush over. Even some of the Huayin sect's higher-ups were alarmed and rushed over from all directions. Not long after, over 200 people wearing the same uniform had gathered outside the Huayin sect's entrance. They surrounded Jianshan, the uninvited guest. "Brat, who are you? Do you not want to live anymore? You actually dare to behave so atrociously in my Huayin sect. You actually destroyed our Huayin sect's entrance. Our Huayin sect will definitely not forgive you." The 200 Huayin sect disciples all angrily cursed at Jianshan. Their furious gazes seemed to be able to spit fire. Jianshan had destroyed the Huayin sect's entrance, which was equivalent to a slap to the Huayin sect's face. These Huayin sect disciples all felt extremely furious, and their faces were filled with killing intent. Now that the Huayin sect had 3 peak Heaven Saint Masters, there was no power in the Kingdom of Jesson that dared to oppose them. The glory of having 3 Heaven Saint Masters made these ordinary disciples of the Huayin sect feel extremely proud. Their gazes became much higher, and they no longer put anyone in their eyes. Second Martial Uncle is here. Everyone, make way. At this time, a loud shout rang out from within, and the 200 Huayin sect disciples immediately opened up a path for that person. A middle-aged man in a brocade robe with a resolute expression walked in with a majestic gait. His sharp eyes were like unsheathed swords as he stared at Jianshan. "Sir, who are you? Why did you destroy my Huayin sect's entrance and a large hall? If you don't give me a clear explanation, no matter who you are, don't even think of leaving today," the middle-aged man sternly shouted. Hearing this, Jianshan's gaze turned cold. He sneered. "The Huayin sect is actually even more arrogant than I imagined. You don't put anyone in your eyes at all. According to what you're saying, if I were a prince of the Kingdom of Jesson, wouldn't you also leave me here?" The middle-aged man's expression changed, and he angrily shouted, "Impudent! Don't talk nonsense. I've seen the 2 princes of the Kingdom of Jesson. Just who are you? Hurry up and tell me, or don't blame my Huayin sect for being impolite." "Impolite? I just happen to want to see just how impolite you are. If you have any ability, then go ahead and show me." Jianshan sneered. His gaze became even colder, and an intense killing intent flickered in his eyes. The middle-aged man coldly snorted. Now that the Huayin sect had 3 Heaven Saint Masters, their status in the Kingdom of Jesson had skyrocketed. No one could compare to them, so he did not place this youth in his eyes at all. He immediately waved his hand and shouted, "Go, capture him. If he dares to resist, don't hold back." Yes, the middle-aged man clearly had a lot of prestige. Many disciples responded, and several dozen of them immediately charged at Jianshun with saint weapons in hand. They attacked with their full strength as soon as they arrived. Jianshun slowly crossed his arms in front of his chest. He just stood there with his back straight, showing no intention of fighting. However, just as the disciples approached within 10 meters of his body, the sand and stones on the ground suddenly flew up without warning, carrying a layer of faint purple and green light as they shot out in all directions at lightning speed. In an instant, miserable cries rang out everywhere. Several dozen vigorous Huayun sect disciples collapsed on the ground in the blink of an eye, howling in pain. Their bodies were riddled with countless tiny holes. Fresh blood flowed out, dyeing their clothes red. All of them were heavily injured. Some of the weaker ones even died on the spot due to internal injuries. The expression of the middle-aged man, called second martial uncle, suddenly changed. He gravely looked at Jianshun's face that did not seem to be in his 20s. At this moment, he no longer dared to look down on this youth who was much younger than him. "Just who are you?" the middle-aged man said in a deep voice, but he did not show any fear. "What's going on?" At this moment, a deep voice rang out from behind. The sect master of the Huayan sect, Chang Fei, had led a group of experts over, followed by a large group of Huayan sect disciples. "Greetings, sect master." The middle-aged man immediately bowed to Chang Fei and explained, "Sect master, we don't know where this brat came from. Not only did he barge into our Huayan sect for no reason, he even destroyed our main hall and injured several dozen disciples." Seeing the ruins of the sect, Chang Fei's expression became somewhat gloomy. Yesterday, the Huayan sect had suffered a loss in Chanyang Prefecture and returned dejectedly. Today, someone had come to cause trouble and even destroyed the Huayan sect's main hall. This was simply a slap to the Huayan sect's face. "Who are you? Why have you come to cause trouble in my Huayan sect?" Chang Fei glared at Jianshun. His expression was very unsightly. "Sect master of the Huayan sect, haven't you been looking for me for several years? Yesterday, you even came to my house to cause trouble. Do you really think I'm easy to bully?" Jianshun coldly sneered at Chang Fei. Chang Fei's expression changed, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. "You are Changyang Shoten?" "That's right. Sect Master Cheng, didn't you want to capture me, Changyang Shoten, and bring me to your Huayan sect? Now that I, Changyang Shoten, have taken the initiative to come to your Huayan sect, I want to see just what your Huayan sect can do to me. Back then, your Huayan sect forced me to leave my home. Now it's time to properly settle that debt." Jianshun spoke one word at a time, the resentment in his heart extremely intense. Chang Fei's expression was somewhat bewildered as he looked behind Jianshun. His expression became somewhat serious, and he loudly said, "Senior Chang Wuji, since you've come, please show yourself." Jianshun coldly smiled. "There's no need to call me. I'm the only one here. Changbo didn't come at all." Hearing that, a trace of joy flashed in Chang Fei's eyes, and the worry in his heart disappeared. He coldly smiled. "Changyang Shoten, if you had obediently stayed in Changyang Prefecture, my Huayan sect wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. But since you've taken the initiative to come here, it's not up to you to decide. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Who knows who will live and who will die today?" Jianshun's face was filled with disdain. A cruel smile appeared on Chang Fei's face. His gaze swept past the destroyed gate and hall, and he disdainfully said, "Changyang Shoten, don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you've learned some skills over the years. 6 years have passed, and the enmity of my son's arm should be settled today." Chang Fei took a step back and waved his hand. "Go, don't take his life." A few of the experts standing behind Chang Fei immediately took out their saint weapons, and their bodies turned into blurs as they quickly charged at Jianshun. They were actually all Earth Saint Masters. As Earth Saint Masters, they all had a certain level of insight. From the destruction of the gate and hall, they had already determined that Changyang Shoten was at least an Earth Saint Master. As a result, they didn't dare to underestimate him, and they all attacked together. A strong killing intent flashed through Jianshun's eyes. His right hand repeatedly pointed at the air, and azure sword chi shot out from his fingertips, shooting toward the Earth Saint Masters at lightning speed. The Earth Saint Masters of the Huayun sect didn't dare to be careless. They immediately waved their saint weapons to block the incoming sword chi. When the two collided, a clear ringing sound rang out, and the sword chi immediately dissipated. However, the Earth Saint Masters suddenly trembled, and their charging speed came to an abrupt halt. They then staggered back 3 steps before stabilizing themselves. Although the sword chi was only the size of a finger, it contained an extremely powerful force. Even with their strength as Earth Saint Masters, it was difficult for them to block it. The Huayun sect experts were greatly shocked. However, just as they stabilized themselves, several more beams of azure and violet sword chi tore through the air toward them. The experts hurriedly raised their saint weapons to block, but 3 of the weaker ones had their foreheads pierced by the azulate sword chi. They immediately collapsed to the ground with their eyes wide open. They had died with remaining grievances. Seeing this scene, an old man who had originally planned on watching from the back suddenly had a change in expression. He immediately yelled, "Go help them." After saying that, he took the lead to charge at Jianshan. Behind him, the other experts who had been watching with folded arms also took out their saint weapons, following closely behind the old man as they charged at Jianshan. Chapter 448. After recovering from his shock, the Huayun sect master's face became gloomy. His eyes flickered with uncertainty. Chanyang Prefecture's Chong Wuji had already given the Huayun sect a lot of pressure. Even though they now had 3 Heaven Saint Masters, they were still unable to suppress Chanyang Prefecture. Now that another genius had appeared in Chanyang Prefecture, Cheng Fei began to worry for the Huayun sect's future. Chanyang Shoten is only 21 years old, but he already has the ability to fight against Earth Saint Masters. And from the looks of it, even among Earth Saint Masters, his strength can be considered at the peak. If such a person is allowed to grow, then our Huayun sect will be trampled under Chanyang Prefecture's feet. Cheng Fei thought to himself. Soon after, a trace of viciousness appeared in his eyes. He immediately took out a piece of the mother-child twin jade from his space ring and crushed it, notifying the great elders who were cultivating in the back mountains. In a huge mountain behind the Huayun sect, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters of the Huayun sect were gathered. 2 of the great elders were taking turns to pass on their cultivation knowledge and experience to Saya, who had just become a Heaven Saint Master. At this moment, one of the great elders' expression suddenly changed. With a flip of his hand, a palm-sized piece of jade appeared in his hand. The jade had already been broken in half. Looking at the 2 halves of the jade, the other great elder and Saya's expression became somewhat serious. They naturally knew what the 2 halves of the jade represented. It seems that something has happened in the Huayun sect. Senior brother, you stay here and teach Saya. I'll go to the front mountains to see what's going on, said one of the great elders. Another great elder stood up from the stone bench and said in a deep voice, I think something big must have happened. Otherwise, Cheng Fei wouldn't have crushed the mother-child twin jade. Let's go and take a look. The 3 Heaven Saint Masters of the Huayun sect immediately left the cave and flew to the front. At the entrance of the Huayun sect, several loud sounds rang out. Over 10 Earth Saint Masters who had surrounded Jianshan were sent flying by Jianshan, vomiting blood. They smashed into the building behind them, creating a large hole in the wall. Are you really Chanyang Shoten? The Huayun sect master stared at Jianshan with a rather pale face. He found it very difficult to accept what had just happened. Over a dozen Earth Saint Masters had actually been defeated by Chanyang Shoten. Even though this was happening right in front of him, he still felt like it was a dream. It was so unbelievable that he even began to doubt the identity of the person in front of him. Was he really Chanyang Shoten, who was around the same age as Cheng Mingxiang? Over a dozen pale-faced Earth Saint Masters walked out of the hole in the wall and stood before Cheng Fei in the end. Their gazes toward Jianshan were filled with shock. They had also been stunned by Jianshan's strength. Sect Master Cheng, right now, I, Chanyang Shoten, am standing right here. If your Huayun sect has any ability, then feel free to use it. Let's see what you can do to me. Jianshan expressionlessly said, Chanyang Shoten, with your arrogant cultivation, Our Huayun sect is not a place where you can behave atrociously. Once the Grand Elder comes, you can only obediently wait to be captured." An Earth Saint Master, standing behind Cheng Fei, angrily shouted. Just as he finished speaking, 3 powerful auras spread out from the back of the Huayun sect. 3 white-robed figures quickly flew over from the distance, finally landing in front of the Huayun sect's upper echelon. Seeing the 3 Heaven Saint Masters arrive, the Huayun sect disciples immediately knelt on one knee and loudly shouted, "We greet the Grand Elder." The voices of several hundred people overlapped, forming a huge sound wave that reverberated through the mountain peak. It was an incomparably magnificent sight. "Who are you?" Saya glared at Jianshun and asked in a deep voice. His face was somewhat gloomy, treating the surrounding disciples as if they were nothing. The 2 Grand Elders did not say anything. Their gazes swept over the destroyed gate and the hall behind it a few times. Their expressions became more and more serious. The 2 of them had been Heaven Saint Masters for many years now, so they could clearly sense the extremely dense fire elemental energy in the air. Controlling the energy of the world was an ability that only Heaven Saint Masters could use. "Grand Elders, Master, he is the culprit who cut off my son's arm," Changyang Shoten. The sect master of the Huayun sect, Cheng Fei, gnashed his teeth as he spoke. Now that the 3 Heaven Saint Masters of the Huayun sect had arrived, he was filled with confidence. He no longer feared Jianshun. Hearing that, a gleam of light flashed through the eyes of the 3 Heaven Saint Masters of the Huayun sect. They studied Jianshun, and Saya immediately lost his cool. He yelled, "Changyang Xiangtian, you really are bold. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to walk it. There's no door to hell, but you insist on barging in. Since you've come to my Huayun sect today, stay here." In Saya's heart, his resentment for Jianshun was extremely strong. Yesterday, it was precisely because of Jianshun that he had lost all face in front of Chang Wuji in front of so many Huayun sect disciples. He was still brooding over it. "Saya, shut your mouth." One of the Grand Elders frowned and shouted at Saya. His tone was somewhat strict. Saya's neck shrunk back, and he immediately stopped talking. Although he was also a Heaven Saint Master, the 2 Grand Elders still held great prestige in his heart. He did not dare to resist their words at all. One of the Grand Elders looked at Jianshun with a complicated expression. He asked with uncertainty, "Are you really the 4th young master of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten?" "Correct. I am Changyang Shoten," said Jianshun. Having received confirmation, the 2 Grand Elders looked at each other, a trace of shock in their eyes. After a moment of hesitation, one of the Grand Elders said, "Changyang Shoten, have you come because of what happened yesterday?" "That's only the first reason. The second reason is that your Huayun sect relied on its strength to force me to leave my home. The new enmity from yesterday and the old grudges of the past will all be settled today," said Jianshun coldly. "Changyang Shoten, the 2 of us have heard of what happened back then. Although it was caused by Cheng Mingxiang, and he did not know how to act appropriately, you did not need to cut off his arm. After all, he is the next sect master of our Huayun sect. What face will our Huayun sect have left if you do this?" One of the Grand Elders calmly said. It was impossible to tell whether he was happy, angry, or sad. "Grand Elder, there's no need to waste words with him. Just capture him. If we don't properly teach him a lesson, what face will our Huayun sect have left in the kingdom of Jessin?" Cheng Fei was a bit impatient. He had long since wanted to avenge his son's arm. Now that the opportunity had finally come, he could not wait any longer. "Shut your mouth." One of the Grand Elders angrily glared at Cheng Fei, scaring him into not daring to say another word. Afterwards, the Grand Elder turned to Jianshun and solemnly said, "Changyang Shoten, how do you plan on settling this?" Jianshun pondered for a moment before saying, "The Huayun sect is the founding minister of the kingdom of Jessin. It has great merits, and I don't want to go too far. How about this? I'll give you 2 choices. The first is for me to destroy the Huayun sect and erase it from the kingdom of Jessin." The expressions of all the Huayun sect disciples became extremely ugly. As for the newly advanced Heaven Saint Master, Saya, his face was ashen from anger. His eyes seemed like they were about to spit fire. If it were not for the presence of the Grand Elders, he would have already attacked. Even the two Grand Elders' expressions became extremely ugly. Jianshun continued. The second choice is for the three of you to have a great battle with me. If you can defeat me, all of your past grievances will be written off. If you lose, I want the two of you to personally cut off Saya's right arm as payment for what he did yesterday. Furthermore, I want you to abolish the Huayun sect's current sect master. Saya finally could not endure it any longer and angrily shouted, "You've gone too far. Chanyang Shoten, you're far too arrogant. What kind of place do you take my Huayun sect for? Even if Chang Wuji personally came, he wouldn't dare to say such a thing. Who do you think you are?" The Huayun sect master's expression also became extremely ugly after hearing Jinshin's words. Even the surrounding Huayun sect disciples were stunned by Jinshin's words. They all looked at Jinshin as if they were looking at an idiot. The two Grand Elders walked out at the same time and expressionlessly said, "Since it's like that, then let's have a spar. Let's see the skills of the Chanyang Prefecture's fourth young master. Let's go." After saying that, the two Grand Elders both took to the air and flew off into the distance. They pulled the battlefield out of the Huayun sect's territory so that it wouldn't affect the Huayun sect. Jinshin wasn't willing to fall behind either. A layer of dense wind elemental energy instantly formed around his body, wrapping around him as he shot into the sky even faster than the two Huayun sect Grand Elders. Seeing this, everyone from the Huayun sect, including Saya, was shocked. As for Cheng Fei, his mouth was so wide that it could fit an egg. No, this is definitely impossible. How can he fly? That's an ability that only Heaven's Saint Masters possess. The Huayun sect master's voice trembled as a chill rose up from his body. Chapter 449. Within the palace of the Jessin Kingdom, the king of the Jessin Kingdom was seated at a table in a dazzling hall with a smile on his face as he conversed with two people across from him. One of them was young, and the other was old. Both of them wore luxurious robes and exuded a unique aura that came naturally from being in a high position for a long time. Their mannerisms were natural and magnanimous. These two people were a prime minister and a prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. They had departed from the Kingdom of Jessin when the war in the Kingdom of Jessin had just ended. After traveling through the night, they had finally arrived at the palace of the Kingdom of Jessin to meet the king of the Kingdom of Jessin. The king of the Kingdom of Jessin had been very busy these past 2 days. He had only received the envoys from the 4 kingdoms yesterday afternoon. There were 2 main reasons for the envoy's visit. The first was to inquire about the relationship between the Qin Empire and the Kingdom of Jessin, as well as to meet the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire. The second reason was to discuss the compensation for the Kingdom of Jessin. However, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had already left, so the envoys naturally didn't get to meet the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. However, the king of the Kingdom of Jessin had purposely divulged some important information to them. The reason the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had come to the Kingdom of Jessin's aid was actually because they were under the orders of an imperial protector of the Qin Empire. The identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire had frightened the envoys so much that cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. They were all of high status in their respective kingdoms, so they naturally understood what the identity of the imperial protector represented. Due to the deterrence of the identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, the subsequent negotiations went smoothly. The 4 kingdoms compensated the Kingdom of Jessin with a sizable sum of money and a large number of magic cores. The Amles Kingdom, the Blue Wind Kingdom, and the Hidden Dragon Kingdom had already compensated the Kingdom of Jessin with more than 50 million purple coins. With this amount of compensation, the Jessin Kingdom would be able to quickly recover from the war that had just taken place in the Jessin Kingdom. However, the Pingyang Kingdom's compensation was the least out of all the other kingdoms, only a mere 1 million purple gold coins. The ambassador from the Pingyang Kingdom had a sullen expression as he explained the situation to the Jessin Kingdom's king. The treasury of the Pingyang Kingdom had been completely ransacked by a mysterious expert. Everything of value had been taken away. The negotiations between the 5 kingdoms went smoothly and ended in just 2 hours. Then, the king of the kingdom of Jessen issued an order to release the captured king of the Pingyang kingdom. Due to the special status of the king of the Pingyang kingdom, he was not executed. Instead, he was locked up in the prison of a northern fortress and his life was not in danger. After dealing with the matter of compensation from the four kingdoms, the king hadn't stopped to rest. Over the past 2 days, there had been countless envoys from the other kingdoms coming to visit him, making him very busy. But now, with the identity of the two people sitting in front of him, even the king of the Jessen kingdom had to take them seriously and carefully receive them. The kingdom of Heavenly Eagle wasn't a kingdom that the kingdom of Jessen could afford to offend. The prime minister of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom was the one conversing with the king of the kingdom of Jessen. The prince sitting at the side listened quietly and didn't interrupt. The prime minister of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom was beating around the bush. He was trying to probe the relationship between the kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire, as well as the reason why the Qin Empire suddenly assisted the kingdom of Jessen in fending off the allied forces of the four kingdoms. With regards to this topic, the king of the kingdom of Jessen had already thought of an excuse that would be beneficial to the kingdom of Jessen. He also emphasized the identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. Right now, the relationship between the kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire was still unclear. He didn't want to offend the kingdom of Heavenly Eagle. When they heard that the order to assist the kingdom of Jessen was given by the Qin Empire's imperial protector, the prime minister and prince of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom immediately became serious. Then, the prime minister smiled and exchanged a few pleasantries with the king before revealing the second purpose of their visit. Your Majesty, I've heard that your Princess Glan is already 20 years old and has yet to marry. Our king of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom hopes that our two kingdoms can be allies for generations to come. Thus, this old subject is here to propose marriage. I hope that your Majesty can betroth the Princess Glan to the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom. The prime minister said amiably with a friendly smile on his face. Hearing this, the king of the kingdom of Jessen's expression changed slightly. He revealed a slightly troubled expression. This was because he had already decided to betroth the Princess Glan to the fourth young master of the Changyang prefecture, Changyang Shoten. He had hoped to rope in this talented individual who was praised by even his imperial uncle. If something had happened to Changyang Shoten in the past few years, then the marriage would have been annulled. The king of the kingdom of Jessen would have been able to arrange another marriage for the Princess Glan. However, he had already received news that Changyang Shoten had returned 2 days ago. As a result, the marriage would have to be carried out according to the previous agreement. He could not break the agreement because the current Changyang prefecture was no longer the same as before. With Changyang Shoten's strength exposed, the status of Changyang prefecture in the kingdom of Jessen had risen as well. Even the imperial family did not dare to offend them. The most important reason was that the king of the kingdom of Jessen had suspected more than once that the Qin Empire was assisting the kingdom of Jessen because of Changyang prefecture. Only the Changyang ancestor, who had been missing for several decades, had this possibility. As a result, the king of the kingdom of Jessen did not dare to neglect Changyang prefecture at all. After a moment of silence, the Jessen kingdom's king said, Prime Minister Che, Yer is this king's only daughter. At the same time, she is also this king's most beloved daughter. Allow me to discuss this with her and see what she thinks. That's not a problem. Your Majesty is a good father. I admire you. Prime Minister Che chuckled without showing any displeasure. The prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom beside him did not show any displeasure either. He remained as calm as before. After that, the two sides exchanged a few pleasantries before the two envoys from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom left to rest. After the two left, the king of the Jessen Kingdom let out a long sigh and closed his eyes, rubbing his temples as if he had a headache. The king of the kingdom of Jessen was very interested in the marriage that the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had proposed. If he could befriend the kingdom of Jessen, the kingdom of Jessen would definitely benefit greatly. It would play an extremely important role in the development of the kingdom of Jessen. If the Qin Empire has nothing to do with the Changyang ancestor, what should I do? Should I take the risk of offending the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and betroth you to Changyang Shoten according to our previous agreement, or should I offend the Changyang Prefecture and the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? The king softly murmured. With his position, he had to put the development of the kingdom of Jessen first. Although he loved his daughter dearly, there were some decisions that were not up to him. Although he knew that the fourth young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten, possessed extraordinary talent, he believed that Changyang Shoten would take a long time to truly mature. It would take at least a few decades, and at most a century. It was very difficult for him to wait any longer. As for the Qin Empire, the king did not know why the Qin Empire was helping him. Perhaps it was because a senior from the kingdom of Jessen had some connection with the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. If they were willing to help him once, who could guarantee that they would help him a second time? He had to find a way out for the kingdom of Jessen. At the top of the mountain, the wind whistled through the sky, producing an ear-piercing shriek that sounded like the wailing of ghosts. 20 kilometers away from the Huayun sect's encampment, Jianshan stood in the air in luxurious white robes, coldly staring at the three people before him. No wonder you're so arrogant. So you're already a heaven saint master. Saya stared at Jianshan with an unsightly expression. Her eyes were filled with jealousy. Jianshan did not even glance at Saya. Saya had only just become a heaven saint master, and her strength had not yet stabilized. Even among the first cycle heaven saint masters, she was at the bottom. Jianshan expressionlessly stared at the two great elders. He indifferently said, "Do it. Don't blame me for not warning you. If you don't use your full strength, you'll lose very miserably." The two great elders did not become angry. Instead, their faces became serious. From the speed and density of the wind elemental energy in Jinshan's hands, they could tell that Jinshan's control over the energy of the world was greater than theirs. The two great elders looked at each other, understanding each other's thoughts with a single glance. They both took out their saint weapons at the same time. Both were swords of the same shape, and with a shake of their hands, they shot out two powerful sword chi at Jianshan. Saya did not dare fall behind. A huge sword appeared in her hand, and she actually quickly charged at Jianshan. Saya firmly believed that if he and the two great elders attacked together, Jianshan would definitely not be able to stop them. After all, his age was there for all to see. Jianshan's hands grabbed at the air, and the fire elemental energy in the surroundings condensed at an unbelievable speed. In an instant, it condensed into 3 fire elemental swords that emitted a monstrous wave of heat. They turned into red streaks of light that shot toward the 3 great elders. Boom! A violent explosion rang out in the sky. Waves of fire shot out in all directions, turning the sky red. The violent energy waves completely devoured the surrounding clouds, and a small patch of blue appeared in the vast white sky. The 2 great elders' sword chi were scattered, and Saya's figure was obstructed. Saint force surged out of her body, forming an energy barrier around her to block the surrounding waves of fire. Jinshan's figure moved, and under the guidance of the wind elemental energy, he quickly approached Saya. His right hand formed a palm, and the fire elemental energy in the surroundings rapidly condensed again, condensing into a powerful ball of elemental energy in front of his palm. "You have no right to participate in a battle like this. Piss off," Jianshan coldly said, and then his palm shot out like lightning. The moment it approached Saya's chest, the Yuan Qi condensed in front of his palm suddenly erupted, breaking through Saya's defenses with an unstoppable force and viciously striking Saya's chest. Saya immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly paled, and he lost control of his body. Like a kite with its string cut, he fell from the sky. Chapter 450. The expressions of the 2 great elders changed when they saw that Saya had been defeated in a single clash. Their opinion of Jinshan's strength increased once again. "I never thought that he would possess strength that is no weaker than mine at such a young age. This is unbelievable," the 2 great elders thought to themselves. The 2 great elders thought at the same time. However, their hand did not stop moving at all. The two of them quickly charged toward Jianshun and swung their saint weapons at Jianshun with powerful pulses of energy, preventing him from harming Saya any further. Jianshun's eyes suddenly became purplish-green. Countless trees in the forest below exploded, filling the air with wood shavings. They shot toward the two great elders like moths to a flame, completely enveloping the two great elders under their shocked gazes. At this moment, Saya had also stabilized his falling body. He once again condensed the energy of the world to keep himself afloat in the air. His face had already become extremely gloomy, and his gaze towards Jianshan was filled with coldness. His mind was still constantly replaying what Jianshan had said earlier. You don't have the right to participate in a battle like this. Piss off. At this moment, Saya felt deeply humiliated. The disdain in Jianshan's voice was just so obvious. This was a heavy blow to Saya, who had just become a Heaven Saint Master and had stepped into the ranks of the peak experts of the continent. He had been defeated in just a single round. Moreover, he had been defeated by a young man who was not even in his 20s. Changyang Shoten. Saya's eyes were filled with resentment as he stared at Jianshan in the air. He muttered Changyang Shoten's name through gritted teeth, as if he wanted to engrave the name deeply into his mind. In the air, the two great elders did not dare to be careless in the face of the dense rain of wood shavings. Saint force surged out of their bodies, condensing into a barrier around them in a single moment. They could only use this method to block the dense rain of attacks. The dense rain of sawdust struck the two great elders, causing the barrier of Saint force around them to violently tremble, as if it would shatter at any moment. The two great elders' expressions drastically changed. The power of the wood shavings had exceeded their imaginations. Without any hesitation, the two of them roared out at the same time. An even more surging Saint force surged out of their bodies, forming an even more solid barrier around them. Only after the two of them used all their strength to maintain the barrier did they finally stabilize. However, this consumed an extremely large amount of their Saint force, so they could not last very long. High Earth Tier Battle Skill, Flame Dazzle. One of the great elders roared out. The fire element in the surroundings rapidly condensed, condensing into a huge fireball with a diameter of 2 meters in front of him. It shot toward Jianshan with intense heat. The other great elder used this opportunity to charge out of the encirclement of wood shavings and shot toward Jianshan. He roared out, "Space-shattering slash." As he spoke, the huge sword in his hand shone with a dazzling yellow light. It slashed toward Jianshan with surging energy. Jianshan slowly moved his hands in front of him. With his mind, the wood shavings in the air began to dance in an orderly manner. In the end, they actually condensed into two huge swords that radiated with azure and violet sword chi. Both swords were 10 meters long and half a meter wide. Swish! With a flash of purple and green light, two giant swords made of grass and wood shot toward the two of them with an ear-piercing sound. Boom! One of the huge swords collided with the huge fireball, creating a huge explosion. The fireball exploded and turned into a wave of fire that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The entire sky turned red, and the thin clouds in the surroundings were completely evaporated by the intense heat. At the same time, the other huge sword collided with the great elder, charging toward Jianshan. The 10-meter-long sword was shattered by the great elder's high earth-tier battle skill, but the great elder's charging figure was also stopped. The high earth-tier battle skill that he had been preparing was also broken. Take another one of my space-shattering slashes. The great elder roared and once again used the same earth-tier battle skill to slash at Jianshan. A cold smile appeared on Jianshan's face. If it was a heaven-tier battle skill, even a low heaven-tier battle skill would be able to injure him. However, an earth-tier battle skill would hardly be a threat to him. Bang! Bang! Several large trees suddenly exploded, filling the sky with wood shavings. Along the way, the shavings condensed into a 10-meter-long sword that shot into the sky. Following a huge explosion, the two collided once more, blocking the great elder's space-shattering slashes. After using a high-grade Earth-class battle skill twice, both of which had been so easily blocked, the Huayan sect's Grand Elder finally lost his patience. The space-splitting saber slash was already his strongest battle skill. If even that was unable to do anything to his opponent, then there was nothing else he could do. Damn it! Let's see how many times you can block my attacks. Space-shattering slashes. The veins on the Grand Elder's forehead throbbed violently. He couldn't even deal with a rising star in his 20s. This made him lose face, and he used the same battle technique for the third time. Junior apprentice brother, I'll help you. Flame God Sword Art, 7th style. The other Great Elder charged at Jianshun, holding a fiery red sword. The two of them attacked Jianshun from both sides. It's time to end this, Jianshun murmured. The violet and azure light in his eyes gradually faded away as a layer of dense, almost tangible sword chi slowly shot out from his right hand. Jianshun charged towards one of them with the origin energy of the sword spirits in his hand. The origin energy of the sword spirits left behind a dazzling streak of light in the air as it swept over with lightning-like speed, colliding with the saint weapon of the Great Elder, who had used the space-splitting slash. Ding! With a light sound, the violet and azure sword chi's origin energy cut through the Great Elder's saint weapon like tofu. The Great Elder immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and quickly retreated in horror. His face was full of shock. At this moment, the other Great Elder also approached Jianshun, the yellow sword in his hand chopping down with great force. Jianshun swung the origin energy of the sword spirits to meet the Great Elder's attack without any fear. When the two collided, the Great Elder's face changed greatly. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his body rapidly retreating as if he had been heavily injured. How was this possible? You actually destroyed my saint weapon. The other Great Elder involuntarily cried out in shock, his face filled with disbelief. Jianshun didn't let the two of them go. Wrapped in wind elemental energy, he quickly chased after one of them. The violet and azure sword spirits' origin energy chopped down once again, forcing the Great Elder to raise his saint weapon to block. Ding! With a light sound, another 2-finger-sized gap appeared in the Great Elder's saint weapon. With his saint weapon damaged one after another, his injuries became even more severe. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, his face as pale as a sheet of paper. At this moment, the two Great Elders fully understood the power of the violet and azure sword spirits' origin energy. Seeing that Jianshun still wanted to continue his attacks, the other Great Elder's face changed greatly. He hurriedly yelled, "Chanyang Shoten, stop!" Jianshun stopped. His entire body was wrapped in a layer of dense wind elemental energy. His heroic figure stood between the heavens and earth. The origin energy of the violet and azure sword spirits in his right hand fluctuated, making him seem like a mighty god of war. Jianshun emotionlessly looked at the Great Elder who had spoken, but he didn't say anything. The Great Elder looked at the gap in his saint weapon before looking at the other Great Elder, who was even more heavily injured. He could not help but let out a long sigh. After hesitating for a very long time, he finally unwillingly said, "We admit defeat." After he finished speaking, the Supreme Elder seemed to have aged a lot, and his expression became somewhat dispirited. The other Great Elder stabilized himself in the air. His face had also become rather dazed. He did not wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth, allowing the blood to drip onto his clothes. His eyes were empty. No matter who it was, this result was very difficult to accept. 2 veteran Heaven Saint Masters had actually been defeated by a junior. The most difficult thing to accept was that this junior was only in his 20s. Sai, I'm old. I can't keep using it. Chanyang Shoten, you've won. Both of us have been defeated by you. One of the Great Elders sighed, his face very dispirited. At this moment, Saya also flew up from below. She looked at the 2 Great Elders in disbelief as her heart churned. Jianshun withdrew the origin energy of the violet and azure sword spirits. Crossing his arms, he said, "Elders, let's go back and deal with this matter. Now that it's settled, I should return as well." The two great elders sighed again and nodded. Without saying anything else, they turned around and flew back to the Huayan sect's encampment. At this moment, all the disciples of the Huayan sect had put down what they were doing and gathered in front of the sect. They looked at the distant sky and discussed spiritedly. The entire mountain was buzzing with activity. When the three great elders and Jianshan landed in front of the sect, the originally chattering disciples immediately quieted down. Although there were over 1,000 people gathered in such a large place, it was strangely quiet. However, when they saw the condition of the four of them, all the disciples were astonished. Their faces were full of disbelief. Of the four, only Jianshan was in good condition. He did not seem to have changed at all. As for the two great elders and the three heaven saint masters, their faces were pale. Traces of blood could be seen at the corner of their mouths. The two great elders' dispirited expressions could be clearly seen by anyone with some eyesight. Chapter 451. Seeing this scene, Cheng Fei's originally confident expression changed. He suddenly had a thought that he did not even dare to think about. Cheng Fei quickly walked up to the two grand elders and nervously asked, "Grand elders, what is the result?" Cheng Fei had already guessed the answer from the grand elders' expressions, but he did not dare to believe it. One of the grand elders sighed and guiltily looked at Cheng Fei. After a long silence, he finally said, "Cheng Fei, from today onwards, you are no longer the sect master of the Huayan sect." The grand elder's words were extremely heavy, and his face was filled with helplessness. The Huayan sect had stood in the kingdom of Jessen for several hundred years and was known as the #1 sect in the kingdom of Jessen. In the past, they were only slightly weaker than the imperial family, but now that they had three heaven saint masters, they were even stronger than the imperial family. Yet, with such strength, they had actually been forced to resign in front of all the disciples of the Huayan sect. To the Huayan sect, this was definitely a humiliation that could never be washed away. Ever since the Huayan sect had been established, it had experienced countless storms. What kind of storms had it not seen before? But it had never been in such a miserable state like today, especially when the opponent was a young man in his 20s. This was something that no one in the Huayan sect could accept. Cheng Fei's face instantly paled, and he was completely dumbfounded. His face was filled with disbelief. Two grand elders and three heaven saint masters had actually been defeated by the fourth young master of the Chanyang prefecture, Chanyang Shoten. No. How is this possible? This is impossible. Cheng Fei was at a loss. He truly found it difficult to accept this fact. This was because he knew that Chanyang Shoten was even younger than his son, Chang Mingxiang. Moreover, he had only condensed a saint weapon and become a saint 6 years ago. But now, in just a few short years, this little saint had leaped over the Dragon Gate and become a heaven saint master. Moreover, he had defeated 3 heaven saint masters without being injured at all. This was just too shocking. Cheng Fei even began to suspect that the Supreme Elder and Saiya's trio were acting together. All of the Huayan sect's disciples were stupefied. Many of their mouths were wide open as they stared at the main characters in disbelief. Even ordinary disciples like them were unable to accept this result. Alas, one of the grand elders raised his head and sighed. His expression was dispirited, and he seemed to have aged greatly. He said in a low voice, "Chanyang Shoten, you should be satisfied now, right? The matters of the past have been written off. I hope our Huayan sect and Chanyang Prefecture can still maintain the friendship of the past." After this battle, the two supreme elders had a clear understanding of Jinshin's strength. Jinshin's unprecedented talent and unparalleled battle prowess had already caused them to feel a deep sense of fear. In the future, they had every reason to believe that Jinshin would definitely be able to become a saint ruler. Jinshin stood proudly with his arms crossed. He looked at the gloomy Saya and said, "Supreme Elders, you seem to have forgotten one thing. There is still an arm that hasn't been removed." The two Supreme Elders' expressions changed. Saya was already a heaven saint master, and this was an extremely important asset to the Huayan sect. They definitely did not wish for Saya to be injured in the slightest. If his right arm was cut off, Saya's strength would be greatly reduced. Even if he was a Heaven Saint Master, he would still be in existence at the bottom, unable to use his full strength. Changyang Shoten, Changyang Prefecture, and our Huayan sect have already been friends for several hundred years. I hope you can be lenient. Although Saya was in the wrong yesterday, it did not lead to a disaster. Please let him go. One of the supreme elders gave in and used a pleading tone. Jianshun was just too strong. The two of them had already lost their previous might. No, Jianshun said without any hesitation. A cold light flickered in his eyes as he said, "You should rejoice that yesterday's matter did not lead to a disaster. Otherwise, even if your Huayan sect was the founding hero of the Huayan sect, I definitely would not have held back. I will definitely take Saya's arm. If you don't do it, then I'll do it myself. At that time, it won't be so easy. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to keep his life." The two supreme elders' expressions became extremely unsightly. They dilly-dallied for a long time, but still did not do it. They really could not bear to see the Huayan sect lose a peak expert. As for Jianshun, he was also someone they did not dare to offend. They were afraid that they would vent their anger on Jianshun and cause the Huayan sect to suffer even greater losses. Suddenly, Saya shouted, "Fine, Changyang Shoten, you want my right arm, right? I'll give it to you." As he said that, Saya's left hand formed a palm. Saint force surged out of his body, and he directly chopped at his right arm. Blood filled the air as Saya's entire right arm was chopped off. The intense pain caused Saya's facial muscles to twist. He resisted the urge to make the slightest sound. "Changyang Shoten, is this enough?" Saya's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Jianshun with hatred. A cold smile appeared on Jianshun's face. "Saya, I won't ask about what happened in the past. But in the future, you'd best know your place. If you dare do anything harmful to my Changyang Prefecture, I'll make you regret it. I hope you won't implicate the Huayan sect." Saya tightly clenched his teeth, not making a sound. He did not have the strength to speak. At this moment, Saya suddenly felt that this scene was extremely similar to what had happened in Changyang Prefecture yesterday. He was the Jianshun in front of him, and the Huayan sect disciples around him were the upper echelons of Changyang Prefecture, as well as the guards. If he hadn't gone overboard yesterday, perhaps he wouldn't have ended up like this today. "Changyang Shoten, are you satisfied now?" asked the Grand Elder with a gloomy expression. Jianshun smiled freely and cupped his hands. "Since this matter has been resolved, then I should leave. Goodbye." Just as Jianshun finished speaking, a figure flew over from the distance, quickly landing in front of Jianshun. This person wore a set of blue robes. It was the housekeeper of Changyang Prefecture, Chang Wuji. Chang Wuji was worried that Jianshun would cause too much of a ruckus, so he had hurriedly rushed over from Changyang Prefecture in an attempt to stop him. But when he saw the scene in front of him, he immediately relaxed. Although the Huayan sect was in a sorry state, the result was still acceptable. "Changbo, why have you come?" Jianshun looked at Changbo with a puzzled expression. He respected Changbo from the bottom of his heart. Chang Wuji examined Jianshun. Seeing that Jianshun hadn't suffered any injuries, he couldn't help smiling. "Fourth young master, may I ask how the matter has been resolved?" Jianshun told Changbo how the matter had been resolved. After hearing it, Changbo sighed. "It seems that this old servant has come for nothing. Fourth young master already knows how to act appropriately." Saying that, Chang Wuji glanced at Saya, who had lost his right arm. A trace of schadenfreude appeared in his eyes. The Huayan sect had just recently gained a Heaven Saint Master, and all the disciples of the Huayan sect were extremely proud of it. But now, only a few days had passed, and this Heaven Saint Master had died. This was not only a blow to the Huayan sect, but also a humiliation. Jianshun chuckled and said, "Changbo, if there's nothing else, let's go home." Chang Wuji nodded and clasped his hands towards the two Huayan sect grand elders. He smiled and said, "Tiancheng Saber, Tiancheng Jian, if you have time in the future, you're welcome to visit our Changyang Prefecture. Farewell. We won't see you out." The two grand elders' expressions were very ugly, as they expressionlessly said. Afterwards, Jianshun and Chang Wuji shot through the air, leaving behind the Huayan sect's disciples who stood there in a daze. Today's matter had dealt a heavy blow to all of them. This was especially true for the disciples who were incomparably proud of the fact that their sect had gained 3 Heaven Saint Masters. This was an unacceptable reality. Although the news of the 4th young master of the Chanyang Prefecture bravely charging into the Huayun sect by himself hadn't spread, the imperial family who had spies all over the country had received the news immediately. That afternoon, in the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jessin, the Prime Minister of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had found the king of the Kingdom of Jessin for the 2nd time. He had once again brought up the matter of marriage alliance with an extremely sincere attitude. The king was extremely moved by the marriage alliance with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was the largest country in a radius of several tens of thousands of kilometers. Its strength was even greater than the Kingdom of Jessin's peak. If they could form a marriage alliance with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, it would be a great help to the weakened Kingdom of Jessin that had just ended the war. However, with the revelation of Chang Wuji's strength, the status of the Chanyang Prefecture in the king's heart had also risen. Adding on the fact that the 4th young master was a peerless genius and the missing Chanyang ancestor who was very likely to have connections with the Qin Empire, it was very difficult for the king to make a decision on who to marry his precious daughter to. If he betrothed his daughter to the Chanyang Prefecture, it would be equivalent to making a bet. No one could predict the final outcome, and there was a chance that he would offend the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. The gains would not make up for the losses. However, if he were to form a marriage alliance with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the Kingdom of Jessin would immediately receive limitless benefits. These were 2 completely different concepts. A guard in black armor ran in without being reported by anyone. He carried a red flag on his back. This flag possessed special authority in the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jessin. Only when there was an extremely urgent matter that required an immediate meeting with the king would this flag be carried on his back. Under any circumstances, he could directly meet the king without having to report anything. No one dared to stop him. Your Majesty, an urgent letter has come from the Huayun sect. It's extremely urgent. The guard in black armor quickly ran into the hall and knelt on one knee as he reported. Gazing at the flag on the back of the black-armored guard, the king's expression instantly turned solemn. The palace maid by the side quickly walked over, received the letter, and presented it to the king respectfully. The king received the letter from the palace maid. He did not even have the time to exchange pleasantries with the Prime Minister of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. He immediately opened the letter and began to read it. Suddenly, His Majesty the King stood up from his chair. His hands trembled as he held the letter in his hands. His face was full of shock, and his eyes were wide open. Your Majesty, what happened? The Prime Minister sitting across from him asked curiously. The king acted as if he did not hear the Prime Minister's words at all. He repeatedly read the contents of the letter several times before exhaling deeply in order to suppress the shock in his heart. He then quickly walked out of the hall and ordered, "Men, prepare a large gift. This king will immediately make a trip to Lore City. Tell the commander of the Black Armored Army, Bai Dao, to come see me immediately." The Prime Minister also stood up. Looking at the king's back, he said, "Your Majesty, the marriage alliance between our 2 kingdoms." Chapter 452. Looking at the king who had already disappeared through the door, Prime Minister Che muttered to himself, "So what if there is an engagement? In any case, they are not married and can cancel it at any time. My Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's prince cannot come here for nothing." From his conversation with the Emperor of the Kingdom of Jessin, Che Chung had understood that the relationship between the Qin Empire and the Kingdom of Jessin wasn't as close as he had thought. This made him feel much less apprehensive. The matter of Jianshan causing a ruckus in the Huayun sect didn't spread because the Grand Elders of the Huayun sect had already said that if anyone dared to spread this news, they would be expelled from the sect and would also be severely punished. If the Huayun sect wanted to maintain its original position in the Kingdom of Jessin, this matter couldn't be spread no matter what. Otherwise, if outsiders learned that the Huayun sect couldn't even deal with the 4th young master of Chanyang Prefecture by himself, the Huayun sect's reputation would plummet. That would be very detrimental to the sect's future development. As for Chanyang Prefecture, it would benefit from this. Not only would its reputation rise, but it would also easily surpass the Huayan sect. The two grand elders were unwilling to see such an outcome. Jinshin and Changbo had already returned to Chanyang Prefecture. Right now, only Changbo, Changyangba, and Bai Yuntian knew that Jinshin had caused a ruckus in the Huayan sect. However, they didn't spread this news. Instead, they were inwardly excited. Who would have thought that the incomparably powerful Huayan sect would be completely suppressed by their own son? Jinshin's battle accomplishments and strength made Changyangba and Bai Yuntian, his parents, feel deeply proud. Following this, Jinshin peacefully stayed in Chanyang Prefecture, rarely going out. He spent almost all of his time by his mother's side, chatting with her. As for the white tiger, because it had taken a lot of heavenly treasures, it hadn't completely digested the medicinal effects. It was lying on the bed in Jinshin's room, curled up and sleeping soundly. However, the white tiger's growth rate was indeed very fast. Jinshin had already determined that the white tiger's current strength had already reached the rank of Tier 2 magic beast from the aura emitted from its body. As long as it was given a few more days, it would be able to smoothly step into the rank of Tier 3 magic beast. In the eastern part of Lore City, in a luxurious inn, a young man of about 27 or 28 years of age was sitting at a table, leisurely drinking wine. His gaze was somewhat unfocused as he stared blankly at the busy streets. A waiter walked over with a plate of fragrant magical beast meat in his hands. He gently placed the plate on the table, nodding and bowing as he said, "Sir, the dishes have been served. Do you have any other orders?" Be it the waiter or the manager of the inn, they were all very familiar with this young man in a fiery red robe. This was because this young man had already stayed in this inn for an entire month. He stayed in the best room and ate the best dishes. Not only was he very rich, but he was also very forthright and generous. From time to time, he would reward people with gold coins. In the past month, whether it was the manager of the inn or the waiter of the inn, they had all received a considerable amount of money as a reward. It was equivalent to a year's worth of hard work. As a result, everyone in the inn treated this young man as a god of wealth. The young man waved his hand and dismissed the waiter. Afterwards, he drank alone and ate the delicacies on the table. I wonder how I can find Jinshin. With Jinshin's identity and strength, he should be very renowned in Lore City. Why hasn't anyone heard the name Jinshin after asking around for so long? Is Jinshin not his real name? The young man murmured to himself in a voice that only he could hear. It had already been a month since he arrived in Lore City. After the mercenary tournament, Jinshin had only told him to find him in the Jessin Kingdom's Lore City. As for where he would be in Lore City, there was no mention of it. Let's wait patiently. Jinshin should have just returned from the sacred grounds. It'll take him several months to get here from Mercenary City unless he uses a space gate. The young man murmured to himself. The young man murmured again. After that, he stopped talking and slowly tasted the delicacies on the table alone. At the same time, two middle-aged men rode two Class 3 magical beasts to the fortress on the border of the Kingdom of Jessin. They slowly made their way towards the dilapidated fortress. The two middle-aged men were both in their 40s. One of them was bald, and his upper body was naked. He was tall and sturdy, and the muscles on his body were bulging. They were very distinct and gave people a strong visual impact. The other middle-aged man looked more scholarly. He wore a light green robe, and his long black hair was casually draped over his shoulders. Although he had a scholarly aura, his eyes were flashing with a sharp light. "Yin Zheng, look, there's a fortress up ahead. That should be the Kingdom of Jessin, right?" The burly man pointed at the dilapidated fortress. Hearing this, Yin Zheng took out a map from his space belt and looked at it for a while. Slowly nodding his head, he said, "That's right. According to the map, the Jessin Kingdom is indeed in front of us." Looking at the battered state of the fortress, it must have just experienced a great battle. There's even a faint smell of blood in the air. The burly man exhaled deeply and sighed emotionally. "We've finally arrived at the Kingdom of Jessin after half a year of traveling. Let's not think too much about it. Let's go into the city and rest. It's been a long time since we've had a good meal. Once we're full, we'll slowly make our way to Lore City." Outside of Lore City, 5 people of different ages and dressed in luxurious robes were walking on the official road at the pace of ordinary people. They looked ordinary, but each of them was emitting an inexplicable aura that imperceptibly affected the surrounding mercenaries and caravans. Anyone who passed by the 5 of them would subconsciously avoid them, not daring to come close at all. 10 kilometers ahead, the tall walls of Lore City could be clearly seen. Luo Tian held a jug of wine in his hand as he walked. He took a big gulp of strong liquor and turned to the old man beside him. Xiao Tian, Lore City is a first-class city. It's not small. How are we going to find the Imperial Protector when we get there? Xiao Tian shook his head. The Imperial Protector didn't say. Let's talk about it when we get there. All right, is the Imperial Protector really from the Kingdom of Jessen? Why don't the powerhouses of the Kingdom of Jessen know the name of the Imperial Protector? This is unbelievable, Qing Xiaofan said with a puzzled expression. I also find it strange. With the Imperial Protector's talent and strength, there should be no one in the Jessen Kingdom who doesn't know of him. Yet, he's so obscure and unknown. It's too inexplicable. The one who spoke was Dongi Junbai. Xiao Tian looked at them with dissatisfaction and frowned. All right, we're on the official road. Let's not talk about it. I believe this problem will be solved soon. Right at this moment, the ground began to tremble slightly. Not long after, a series of galloping sounds came from behind. A large group of cavalrymen dressed in black armor, all riding on magical beast mounts, sprinted over from behind. Along the way, they kicked up a cloud of dust, like a rolling yellow dragon that stretched for several kilometers. Several large flags were planted in the middle of this group of cavalrymen, causing the expressions of all the mercenaries and merchants to change. That's the black armored army of the Imperial family. Quick, move out of the way. The mercenaries and merchants walking on the official road turned pale with fright as they hurriedly controlled their carriages to move to the side, opening up the wide road for the black armored army to pass through. Soon after, they all looked at the black armored army that was galloping past them with astonishment, their hearts filled with doubt. The black armored army is the strongest army that protects the Imperial family. Normally, they wouldn't go out at all. What's going on today? The entire black armored army was mobilized and in such a hurry. Could it be that something big has happened? Many mercenaries and caravans began to guess in their hearts. At this moment, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire also stopped and looked back at the black armored army that was galloping towards them. Huh? Isn't that the king of the Kingdom of Jessen? Why is he here? Is he here to look for us? Luo Tian said with some surprise. The marching speed of the black armored army was very fast, and it didn't take long for them to close in on the 5 imperial advisors. At this time, the Jessen Kingdom's king, who was also riding a magical beast and surrounded by several black armored army experts, suddenly noticed the 5 imperial advisors on the side of the road. With a look of shock, he immediately shouted, "Stop!" Soon, the black armored army that was galloping at high speed stopped. The king of the Kingdom of Jessen immediately jumped off his magical beast and walked quickly to the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. With a warm smile on his face, he cupped his hands and said, "I didn't expect to meet the 5 imperial advisors here. What a coincidence." The experts of the black armored army following behind the king also recognized the 5 imperial advisors and cupped their hands in salute. "Your Majesty, you seem to be in a hurry. May I ask what has happened?" Dongi Junbai asked curiously. The king chuckled and said, "You may not believe me if I tell you, but an unprecedented genius has appeared in our Kingdom of Jessen. He has reached the Heaven Saint Master level at such a young age and fought against 3 Heaven Saint Masters alone. Not only did he come out unscathed, he even heavily injured his opponents. I find it hard to believe." Hearing this, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire looked at each other with a strange expression. Xiao Tian immediately asked, "Your Majesty, may I ask who this person is?" "He is the 4th young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten." The king did not hide anything and said with a chuckle. He had his own thoughts. With the talent Changyang Shoten had displayed, the Qin Empire would definitely spare no effort to rope him in. Moreover, Chanyang Shoten was engaged to his daughter, so he was not an outsider. Once Chanyang Shoten had a relationship with the Qin Empire, the kingdom of Jessen would benefit greatly. They could even use Chanyang Shoten's relationship with the kingdom of Jessen to climb up to the Qin Empire. The fourth young master of the Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten. Chapter 453. Afterward, the king of the kingdom of Jessen and the 5 imperial advisors entered Lore City together. They passed through the streets of Lore City for a while before stopping at the gates of Chanyang Prefecture. The surrounding black-armored army immediately spread out to guard the surroundings, ensuring the king's safety. Although the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were present, and basically no one could harm the king of the kingdom of Jessen, the black-armored army still carried out their duties. The commander of the black-armored army, Bai Dao, stared at the grand gates of Chanyang Prefecture with a complicated expression. He was filled with all sorts of emotions, but he didn't know what to feel because he had already learned quite a few things from the king. Chanyang Prefecture had already received news of the king's arrival, so the gates were wide open. All the upper echelons of Chanyang Prefecture gathered at the entrance to welcome the king. Chanyang Ba and Changbo stood at the very front. The second row was made up of the elders of the prefecture, while the third row was made up of Jianshun and his aunts. "Welcome to my Chanyang clan, Your Majesty. Your arrival truly brings light to my Chanyang clan." The leader of the Chanyang clan bowed. The patriarch of Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Ba, immediately went up to welcome the king with a smile. Changbo followed behind Chanyang Ba. The king received a gift from a black-armored army guard beside him and personally handed it to Chanyang Ba. He smiled. "It's been many years since I've been to Lore City. It's rare that I have time today, so I've specially come to take a look. I hope I won't disturb you all." Chanyang Ba chuckled and exchanged a few pleasantries with the king. Suddenly, his eyes caught sight of the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire behind him. His expression immediately changed and became solemn. He hurriedly clasped his hands and said, "I never thought that the imperial advisors would be here as well. Our Chanyang Prefecture has truly neglected you. Please come in." Chanyang Ba's expression became much more solemn in front of the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. He didn't dare to slight them in the slightest. Changbo also clasped his hands and greeted the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he warmly invited them into Chanyang Prefecture. If the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were to be guests in Chanyang Prefecture, it would be a great honor for Chanyang Prefecture. When the guards and a few elders of Chanyang Prefecture discovered that even the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had come, they all became extremely excited generals of Chanyang Prefecture. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire didn't put on any airs in front of Chanyang Ba and Changbo's enthusiasm. They all returned the greetings with smiles on their faces and were very polite. Their attitude towards them was much more cordial than when they were in the imperial palace. Soon after, the king and the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire entered Chanyang Prefecture at the same time. At this time, the king suddenly said, "Chanyang Ba, I heard that Chanyang Shoten has come back. I wonder where he is. Can I meet him? Speaking of which, I haven't seen this future son-in-law of mine even once." "Ha ha." Chanyang Ba's face revealed a trace of a smile, but his heart was as clear as snow. He looked at Jianshun, who was behind a dozen elders, and said with a smile, "Xiang'er, why don't you come out and greet His Majesty? Perhaps it would be more appropriate to call him father-in-law." Changbo suddenly said with a smile on his face. Hearing this, the king was slightly startled. Then he laughed heartily. Chanyang Ba also laughed a few times on the side, appearing to be very happy. The dozen elders moved aside to make a path. Jianshun, who was wearing a white robe, walked out in large strides. He came to the front of the king of the kingdom of Jessen and cupped his hands. With a smile on his face, he said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing, "Chanyang Shoten greets Your Majesty." The king carefully sized up Jianshun. He saw that Jianshun had short hair that was only an inch long. He was very handsome, and his exquisite facial features were so perfect that no one could find fault with them. coupled with his white and tender skin that even women would be jealous of, he was the killer of all the girls in the world. Under his handsome appearance, he also had a resolute temperament. It was as if he had witnessed Jianxin's growth and maturity and was not a frivolous playboy. Good, good, good. Looking at this future son-in-law in front of him, the king became more and more satisfied. He said the word good 3 times in a row. As an emperor, he had seen countless people in his life. Naturally, he could tell that Jianxin was extraordinary. Seeing Jianxin in person was not as good as hearing about him. The moment he saw Jianxin in person, his evaluation of Jianxin in his heart improved a lot. He really is a dragon among men, the king exclaimed. Changyang Ba just looked at his son with a smile on his face. He was very proud of himself. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire also saw Jianxin. They were shocked. They looked at each other and then stepped forward at the same time. They cupped their hands at Jianxin and said in unison, "Greetings, Lord Imperial Protector." When the 5 imperial advisors greeted Lord Imperial Protector, the king of the kingdom of Jessin and Changyang Ba's expressions froze. They stared blankly at the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire who were saluting Jianxin. They fell into a daze and couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. The group of elders and guards of Changyang Prefecture, as well as the experts of the Black Armored Army who followed the king of the kingdom of Jessin, all had the same expression. They stared blankly at the 5 imperial advisors who were saluting Jianxin. Their faces were full of disbelief. Imperial Protector? How can the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire be called Changyang Shoten, the Imperial Protector? Third Aunt Bai Yushuang looked at the scene in front of her in shock. Her heart was in turmoil, and she couldn't calm down. Jianxin looked at Xiao Tian and the others with a wry smile and said, "I didn't expect you to find me so quickly." Qing Xiaofan looked around and chuckled. "Lord Imperial Protector, I hope we haven't caused you any trouble." Jianxin sighed softly. Just as he was about to speak, Changyang Ba's voice sounded, "Xiang'er, what is going on?" Changyang Ba's voice was trembling. It was difficult to conceal the excitement in his voice. Everyone had heard the words Imperial Protector, loud and clear. It was just that they found it hard to believe. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire actually called his son the Imperial Protector. If that was the case, then the Imperial Protector who sent the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire to help the kingdom of Jessin fend off the allied forces of the 4 empires was his 4th son, Changyang Shoten. At this time, the king and Changbo also regained their senses. They looked at Jianxin in shock, waiting for Jianxin's reply. Jianxin pondered for a moment, then said, "Father, let's talk in the grand hall." Changyang Ba suddenly came to his senses. He suppressed the urgency in his heart and hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, yes. Let's talk in the grand hall. Your Majesty, the 5 imperial advisors, please come in." Immediately, all the higher-ups of Changyang Prefecture, the king of the Qin Empire, and the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire gathered in the grand hall. Jianxin's mother and 3 aunts were not qualified to participate in such a high-level event. However, they also wanted to know the relationship between Jianxin and the Qin Empire, so they had no choice but to brace themselves and enter. There were not many seats in the grand hall. A group of old people from Changyang Prefecture took the initiative to give up their seats. All the old people stood quietly to one side, not saying a word. However, their eyes were still filled with shock as they looked at Jianxin. Their minds were still replaying the scene from before. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had actually called the 4th young master of Changyang Prefecture the Imperial Protector. This scene was also very hard for them to believe. Because the dozen or so old people had not taken their seats, the mounts were quite empty. Jianxin took his mother's hand and sat down on a chair. Then he sat down beside her. "Xiang'er, what's going on? Are you the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire?" Changyang Ba asked impatiently as soon as he sat down, unable to hold back the anxiety in his heart. "That's right, father. I have another identity. I am the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire," Jianxin said truthfully. Now that things had progressed to this point, there was no need to hide anything. Changyang Ba's body couldn't help but tremble. His expression immediately became very excited. Then he looked at the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire who were sitting together with him, as if seeking confirmation. The rest of the people in the grand hall were also stunned by Jinshan's words. Their eyes lost their focus, especially the dozen or so old people in Changbo. Their emotions fluctuated greatly. The mysterious imperial protector of the Qin Empire was actually one of their own people. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire all nodded with a smile, confirming this fact. Among the people present, the king was the most shocked, and the one who couldn't believe it the most. The identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire had always been very mysterious. During this period of time, the king had wondered more than once about the relationship between the Qin Empire and the Kingdom of Jesson. He had also wondered how he could truly climb up to the great tree that was the Qin Empire. Because of these questions, he had racked his brains over the past few days, but in the end, he still couldn't find a feasible way. But now, he had never expected that things would turn out so dramatically. The imperial protector of the Qin Empire, who he had tried so hard to find and curry favor with, was actually his future son-in-law. This result made the king of the Kingdom of Jesson not know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't know whether to be happy or sad. "My dear nephew, you've kept us in the dark for so long," the king said with a wry smile. After learning that Jinshan was the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, he was so happy that he even changed the way he addressed Jinshan. Chang Wuji also let out a sigh. He looked at Jinshan with gratification and said, "Fourth young master, I didn't expect you to have such an identity. Our Chanyang prefecture has benefited a lot from you." Chapter 454. Then, they chatted and laughed with each other in the hall. Since the 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire knew the exact identity of the imperial protector, they treated the people of Chanyang prefecture very politely. They had long since put aside the noble identity of the Qin Empire's imperial preceptor. The 5 imperial preceptors' attitude greatly satisfied the vanity and honor of Changyangba and the dozen or so elders. It made all the higher-ups of Changyang Prefecture feel proud. Because of the relationship with Jinshan, the status of Changyang Prefecture was like a carp leaping over the Dragon's Gate, leaping thousands of feet high and turning into a giant dragon. Among the people sitting there, only the king of the Kingdom of Jesson had the lowest status. However, the king did not care about this at all. Instead, he was very excited. He swore that he had never been so excited in his life. After the people chatted for a while in the conference hall of Changyang Prefecture, the banquet was ready. Then, Changyang Ba stood up and warmly invited the distinguished guests to the banquet. "Xianger, come with me." Changyang Ba affectionately took Jinshan's hand and walked outside. Jinshan could clearly feel that his father's hand was trembling slightly. The banquet was arranged in a spacious hall. The best maids in Chanyang Prefecture were all gathered here. However, there was only one table for the banquet, and only 10 chairs were placed. The 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire, the king of the Kingdom of Jesson, the family head of Chanyang Prefecture in Changbo, as well as Jinshan and his mother, Bai Yuntian, took their seats at the same time. This arrangement was agreed upon by all the higher-ups of Chanyang Prefecture. Although Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian's seniority was not the highest in Changyang Prefecture, it was because they had such an outstanding son that the elders who held all kinds of power in Changyang Prefecture made such an arrangement. It imperceptibly raised their status. As for Chang Bo, although he was only a housekeeper on the surface, his status in Chanyang Prefecture was very special. He deserved to participate in such a high-level banquet. Alas, Xianger also benefited from a disaster. When he was 15 years old, he was forced to leave home because of some things. He left for 6 years. None of us expected that Xianger would grow to such a height after 6 years. It's really unbelievable. At the table, Changyang Ba said with a sigh, "Yes, nephew's talent is really high. It's really unprecedented." His Majesty the King sighed. Hearing the two's words, the 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire looked at each other. Their eyes were full of shock. Although Jinshan was very young, they thought that Jinshan's age must be older than what he appeared to be. After all, it was impossible to judge a person's age by appearance alone. Now that they heard Changyang Ba's words, the five suddenly understood that Jianshan's age was much younger than they thought. He was only 21 years old, a 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master. Thinking of this, Xiao Tian and the others were shocked. They had previously guessed Jianshan's age. Although Jianshan was less than 50 years old, they thought that he was at least 30 years old. But now, after knowing Jianshan's exact age, the five of them were shocked speechless. A 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master was really unprecedented. The most outstanding genius in the Tianyuan continent only reached the realm of Heaven Saint Master at 30 years old. But this genius's final achievement was the supreme Holy Emperor. After this matter, the five imperial advisors of the Qinhuang kingdom secretly made up their minds to use this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to curry favor with the imperial protector and nurture their relationship to the deepest level. This was because they knew that the youngest imperial protector in the history of the Qinhuang kingdom would most likely become a supreme existence like the sacred king in the future. After the banquet ended, the five people did not leave. They gathered again in the discussion hall of Changyang Prefecture and continued to chat. It was evening before they all left. In private, the king of the kingdom of Jessen found Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. He said, "In-laws, the war has just ended. This king still has many matters to attend to, so I will have to leave early tomorrow morning. This king hopes that you can enter the imperial palace and discuss the marriage between my daughter and Xiangtian. These two children are not young anymore, so it is time for this marriage." "Haha, of course. Don't worry, your majesty. Once the estate has settled down, we will immediately bring Xiang'er to the imperial palace. I hope we won't cause any trouble for your majesty." Changyang Ba chuckled. Although his son's status was different from before, he still approved of this marriage. On one hand, it was to make the king feel at ease. On the other hand, it was also to acknowledge the Princess of Glan. This was because Changyang Ba had seen the Princess of Glan before. He could not help but sigh in admiration. The Princess of Glan was truly an outstanding girl. "Ha, what are you talking about? I'm more than happy. How can it be troublesome?" The king was very happy and laughed loudly. He used this to vent the joy in his heart. His heart that was in his throat finally calmed down. After the king left, Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian went to Jinshan's room. They found that the five imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire were also in Jinshan's room. Changyang Ba and his wife exchanged greetings with the five imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire. Then they looked at Jinshan and said with a smile, "Xiang'er, get ready tonight. We will go to the imperial palace tomorrow morning." "Yes, father," Jinshan replied. This was within his expectations. Now that his identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire had been exposed, it would be abnormal if the king of the kingdom of Jessen still did not take action to rope in the Changyang Prefecture. Jinshan also wanted to use this relationship to help the kingdom of Jessen climb up the big tree of the Qin Empire. No matter what, the kingdom of Jessen was his motherland. This country was also the result of the blood and sweat of the ancestors of Changyang Prefecture. As a descendant of Changyang Prefecture, he should do his part. Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian wanted to say a few more words with Jinshan, but they finally left after looking at the five imperial preceptors. After Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian left, Jinshan stood in a room and pondered for a while. Then he walked to the bedside and sat down. He said, "I will go to the imperial palace tomorrow morning. The five of you can stay in Changyang Prefecture for a few days." "Yes, imperial protector," Xiao Tian and the other four answered in unison. Unconsciously, their attitude towards Jinshan became more respectful. Not to mention Jinshan's terrifying potential, his current strength was not weaker than theirs at all. He was even stronger than them. As soon as the five imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire left, a maid who was waiting outside came in. "Fourth young master, madam and master ask you to go to the conference hall." "Got it. You can leave now," Jinshan said lightly. "Yes, sir." The maid left. Jinshan arrived before the bed and looked at the white tiger that was sleeping soundly beside the pillow before leaving. He walked toward the conference hall. It was already dark outside, but Changyang Prefecture was still brightly lit. Pairs of black-armored soldiers with cold gazes walked through Changyang Prefecture. Aside from the original guards of Chanyang Prefecture, there was now a new group of black-armored soldiers that specialized in protecting the imperial family. Jian Chun walked into the conference hall. The conference hall was no longer as lively as it was during the day. There were only 3 people inside. 2 of them were Jian Chun's parents, and the third was a middle-aged man in black armor. Jian Chun recognized this middle-aged man. He was his uncle, Bai Dao. Bai Yuntian and Chanyang Ba sat across from Bai Dao. "Xianger, come and greet your uncle," Bai Yuntian said to Jian Chun. Bai Dao also turned his head to look at his nephew. He felt gratified as he smiled faintly. Jian Chun strode forward and said, "Uncle." Bai Dao stood up from his chair and laughed aloud. Good, good, good. You truly are a descendant of my Bai family." With that, Bai Dao strode toward Jian Chun. Suddenly, he threw a punch at Jian Chun's chest with lightning-like speed. Surging wind-attributed Saint force radiated from his fist, causing a violent gust of wind to sweep through the entire hall. He had clearly used his full strength. Bai Dao's attack was so sudden that it came without any warning. Coupled with his strength as an Earth Saint Master, Chanyang Ba was unable to react in time. Jian Chun smiled. With a thought, the chi of the world condensed in his hand. He then gently struck out with his palm, blocking Bai Dao's punch. The two collided, producing a heavy sound in the air. Since both of them control their energy very well, no shockwave spread out. Thump! 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 Bai Dao staggered back a few steps before stabilizing himself with great difficulty. His smile became even wider as he laughed aloud, controlling the energy of the world. "Xiangtian, you really have become a heaven saint master. No wonder you're the imperial protector of the Qin Empire." "Brother, you should believe me now, right?" Bai Yuntian said, rather complacently. As a mother, she felt extremely proud of her son's accomplishments. I do. Of course I do. Ha ha. Bai Dao chuckled. He was clearly extremely happy. A thin layer of mist quickly appeared in his eyes, but it dispersed very quickly, so no one noticed. Chanyang Ba stood up from his chair and smiled. "Bai Dao, it's been 6 years since the two of you have seen each other. You two chat first. I'll go deal with the matters of the clan. Xianger, you stay here with your mother and uncle." With that, Chanyang Ba left the discussion hall. Bai Dao calmed down very quickly. He looked at his nephew with mixed feelings and sighed. A 21-year-old heaven saint master. I never thought that such an outstanding descendant would appear after my Bai family was destroyed. Bai Dao sighed before gradually becoming stern. He stared at Jian Chun and sternly said, "Xiangtian, Uncle knows that your status is different now, but Uncle still wants you to remember one thing. Not only do you have the bloodline of the Chanyang Prefecture, you also have the bloodline of my Bai family. The blood feud of my Bai family will all depend on you in the future." Bai Yuntian frowned and looked at Bai Dao with some reproach. She said with great dissatisfaction, "Brother, Xianger is still young, so why are you bringing up the past? Xianger has already suffered enough outside. He's finally come to an end after so much difficulty, so don't add more burdens to Xianger's shoulders." Chapter 455. Xianger, you don't have to worry about the Bai family right now. Let's talk about it in the future, okay? Bai Yuntian was rather uneasy. Even though her son was the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, the enemies of the Bai family were not weak, and their identities were still unknown. Even the ancestor of the Bai family, who was a saint ruler, could not deal with them. So how could her son deal with them? At the very least, he cannot right now. Xiangtian, your mother is right. We just need to remember the enmity of the Bai family. As for revenge, let's talk about it in the future, because we don't even know the identity of our enemies. Perhaps our ancestors will know a little, Bai Dao said in a low voice. A sliver of sadness appeared on his face when he talked about the past. Bai Dao paused before continuing. Although the 4 heaven saint masters of our Bai family have all passed away, we still have a saint ruler ancestor whose fate is unknown. Perhaps he's still alive. Our priority right now is to find him. But we don't know where he is right now and whether he's still alive. Bai Yuntian was rather worried. Saint rulers don't die so easily. With Xiangtian's talent, I'm sure he'll reach that level sooner or later. It'll be much easier to find him then. Bai Dao looked at Jianshun and said, Xiang Tian, I hope you can pay attention to any news of our ancestor in the future. Yeah, I will. Jianshun nodded. Jianshun and his mother chatted with Bai Dao for a while longer. In the end, they saw that it was getting late, so the three of them dispersed and returned to their rooms to rest. The night passed in a hurry. The next morning, Jianshun emerged from his room with a white tiger in his arms. After eating a sumptuous breakfast with everyone, he left Chanyang Prefecture with Chanyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. They hurried to the imperial palace with a black-armored army of the kingdom of Jesson. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire remained in Chanyang Prefecture and were warmly received by everyone in the prefecture. Jianshun had actually left the 5 of them behind for some selfish reasons. He wanted to increase the deterrence of Chanyang Prefecture. After several hours of travel, they finally arrived at the imperial palace in the evening. The king brought Jianshun, Bai Yuntian, and Bai Yuntian to an elegant hall to rest. He called for a few palace maids to serve them before leaving in a hurry. Not long after the king had returned to the imperial palace, a young man in his 20s and an old man sat across from each other in a luxurious room specially used for receiving important guests. They spoke softly. At this moment, a middle-aged man quickly walked in from outside. He knelt down on one knee before the two of them and said, Second Prince, Prime Minister Che, the king of the Kingdom of Jesson has returned to the imperial palace. However, there are 3 more people in the group. They seem to be of a special status. Hearing this, Prime Minister Che frowned slightly and said, Did anyone find out who they are? Prime Minister, I've already found out. The 3 of them are from a clan called Chanyang Prefecture. They seem to have an important status in the Kingdom of Jesson, said the middle-aged man. A gleam of light flashed through Prime Minister Che's eyes, and he said, You can leave. Pay close attention to their every move. Yes, Prime Minister. The middle-aged man quickly left. Che Chenxiang thought for a while and muttered, Chanyang Prefecture. They're actually from Chanyang Prefecture. A few years ago, the king of the Kingdom of Jesson seemed to have betrothed Princess Glan to someone called Chanyang Shoten. This Chanyang Shoten is the 4th young master of Chanyang Prefecture. Yesterday, the king rejected the marriage proposal from our heavenly eagle kingdom. Today, he invited people from Chanyang Prefecture to the imperial palace. Haha, the meaning behind this is self-evident. A sharp gleam flashed through the second prince's eyes. He slowly took a sip of tea and said calmly, The king of the Kingdom of Jesson really doesn't know what's good for him. Our heavenly eagle kingdom took the initiative to form a marriage alliance with them. Not only did he not cherish this opportunity, he even made us look bad. Oof. The second prince was very angry. Prime Minister Che chuckled. Second prince, please calm down. The marriage alliance was a task given to me by the king. I will do my best to complete it. As for the relationship between the Kingdom of Jesson and the Qin Empire, it's not as close as we think. There's nothing to worry about. Hearing this, the second prince smiled faintly and said, Then I'll have to trouble you, Prime Minister. The Prime Minister stroked the long beard on his chin. His eyes flashed as he looked at the second prince and smiled. Could it be that the second prince has feelings for the Princess of Glan? The second prince nodded slightly and said, It's rare to meet someone who is famous. This Princess of Glan is indeed very outstanding in all aspects. Not only is her cultivation talent not inferior to mine, but she's also very beautiful. Moreover, I feel a feeling from her that I have never felt from other girls. She's so beautiful that she's out of this world, gentle and elegant, like a fairy in the mortal world. Prime Minister Che laughed foolishly. As an old man, he could tell at a glance that the second prince had feelings for the Princess of Glan. At the same time, in a room with pink silk hanging everywhere in the palace, a woman with long black hair was sitting in front of a dressing table. Her arms were moving like a machine as she slowly combed her hair. Her white and tender fingers were holding a wooden comb. Her movements were graceful and had a natural charm. She wore a black and white dress. Her heavenly beauty had a hint of innocence. Although the light in her eyes was dim, it couldn't hide the seductive light in her eyes. It was as if she had the ability to steal people's souls. You are, may I come in? A middle-aged man's voice came from outside the door. It was very gentle. "Father, come in," the woman sitting at the dressing table said calmly. The door opened, and the king of the kingdom of Jessen strode in. When he saw his daughter combing her hair, he sighed inside and said, I can understand your feelings, but as the ruler of a kingdom, there are many things that are beyond my control. Father, I understand. From the day I was born into the imperial clan, my fate was no longer in my control, the woman said emotionlessly. She was extremely dejected. There's no need to be so sad. You're my most beloved daughter. So how can I let you suffer? Is so outstanding. There's only one person who's worthy of you in my heart. Hurry up and dress up. We still have to go see the Changyang clan and your future husband, Changyang Shoten. Changyang Shoten? Isn't that the prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? The woman asked softly. She was rather doubtful. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the king murmured. Disdain appeared in his eyes as he said, How can the prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom be worthy of you? There are some things that you might not know. Now that things have come to this, it's time to tell you. The king paused for a moment and slowly walked behind He looked at his daughter's beauty through the reflection of the bronze mirror and smiled. You once stayed in Kargath Academy for a period of time. I believe you've seen Changyang Shoten before. After a few years, Changyang Shoten's accomplishments have reached a height that even I can only look up to. Did you know that Changyang Shoten is only 21 years old, but he's already a Heaven Saint Master? He's even defeated 3 Heaven Saint Masters from the Huayun sect by himself. Yu's eyes immediately recovered. Her face was filled with disbelief. Her mind was filled with the words a 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master. The king continued, That's not all. Do you know why the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire suddenly came to our kingdom of Jessen's aid? Blankly shook her head. This is all thanks to Changyang Shoten. At the same time, Changyang Shoten is also the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire came to our kingdom of Jessen's aid because of Changyang Shoten. At this point, the Jessen kingdom's king couldn't hide the excitement in his voice. This was truly too inspiring. This piece of news was even more shocking than the previous one. Yu's eyes immediately widened when she heard this. Her cherry-like mouth opened slightly, forming an O shape. Her face was filled with disbelief. After a long while, Yu finally returned to her senses. She turned her head and looked at the king in shock. She covered her mouth and cried out, How? How is this possible? Father, you're not lying to me, are you? The king chuckled and said, Do you think father would joke about something like this? All right, you should dress up and come with me to see Changyang Shoten. Our kingdom of Jessen needs to curry favor with the current Changyang prefecture. The future of our kingdom of Jessen depends on them. Ha ha! I never thought that Sir Imperial Protector would actually be the 4th young master of the Changyang prefecture. This is truly shocking. My name is Yi Ming. Sir Imperial Protector, you could just call me by my name. In the hall, an old man in white robes laughed loudly. His face was filled with unconcealable excitement and joy. This old man was a Heaven Saint Master who guarded the imperial palace of the kingdom of Jessen. He had met Jianshan before at the Eastern Fort. Jianshan nodded with a smile and did not say anything else. Sir Imperial Protector, I heard that you were once a student of Kargath Academy. The principal of Kargath Academy, Kafir, has already received the news and should be on his way. I believe he will arrive at the Imperial Palace soon. When he discovers that Sir Imperial Protector was actually once a student of his, I really wonder what kind of expression he will have. Ha ha! Yi Ming chuckled. Ha ha! The Imperial Ancestor will probably be so shocked that he won't be able to say anything. As soon as Yi Ming finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. The king was walking in with large strides. Yu, who had already changed into a beautiful white dress, was silently following behind him. A strange light flashed through her beautiful eyes as she curiously studied the 3 people from Changyang Prefecture. Her gaze soon froze on Jinshan's face. Nephew, this is my daughter, Princess Glan. Her name is Yu. This name was given to her by Yu's mother. As soon as they entered the hall, The king impatiently introduced his daughter. However, when he mentioned Yu Yu's mother, a trace of sadness appeared on his face. Chapter 456. Jianshan stood up from his chair and looked at Yu Yu with a calm gaze. He smiled and said, "Greetings, Princess Glan." The Princess of Glan was wearing a white robe as she stood obediently behind the king. Her waist-long hair had been styled into a beautiful and exquisite hairstyle, adding a touch of enchanting color to her already heavenly beauty. She was able to steal one's soul. Princess Glan did not say anything, nor did she return the greeting. She stared at Jianshan with a strange look in her beautiful eyes. Her bright and innocent eyes blinked and flickered with a wise radiance. The king chuckled and said, "My dear nephew, this is your first time in the palace of the kingdom of Jesson, right? Let Yu show you around." As he spoke, the king did not wait for Jianshan's reply and used his eyes to signal Princess Glan, who was standing behind him. Princess Glan understood and said gently, "Princess Changyang Shoten, please come with me." Princess Glan's voice was very gentle, and it was very comforting. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Princess Glan." Jianshan smiled and returned the greeting. He then walked out. He also had some things to discuss with Princess Glan. Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian smiled when they saw Princess Glan walk out of the hall. They were very satisfied with Princess Glan. In the kingdom of Jesson, other than Princess Glan, they could not find another girl who was worthy of their son. The king had an excited smile on his face as he sat down next to Yiming. He happened to be facing Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. "In-law, my dear nephew Shangtian and you are not young anymore. I think we should find some time to arrange this marriage." The king chuckled as he said. He was now hoping that this marriage could be arranged as soon as possible. Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian looked at each other and pondered for a moment. Bai Yuntian then said, "Your Majesty, we also agree with the marriage between Xiang and Princess Glan. However, Xiang has grown up and has become someone who can take charge. There are some things that we can't interfere with directly. I think we should discuss this with Xiang and see what he thinks." Hearing this, the king's eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. However, he still agreed with Bai Yuntian's suggestion. In the palace where the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's special envoy was resting, a guard quickly ran in and reporting to the second prince, Prime Minister, "The king of the Kingdom of Jesson has brought Princess Glan over." Then, Princess Glan walked out with a young man who looked to be in his 20s. They were walking towards the Imperial Garden. "You may leave." The Prime Minister waved his hand and ordered the guard to leave. His brows were tightly furrowed. A fierce look flashed across the second prince's eyes. His face was a little gloomy. That young man is undoubtedly Changyang Shoten. The king of the Kingdom of Jesson is really refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I personally came here, but he treated me like this. How preposterous. The Prime Minister also coldly snorted and said, "It seems that the king of the Kingdom of Jesson is determined to betroth Princess Glan to Changyang Prefecture. This Prime Minister will go find the king and ask him face to face." After saying this, the Prime Minister swung his hand and left. There was a trace of anger on his face. After the Prime Minister left, the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom pondered for a moment. Then, he coldly snorted and said in a low voice, "Changyang Shoten, this prince wants to see what kind of ability you have. The person this prince has taken a fancy to is not someone you can taint." After saying this, the second prince quickly walked out of the palace and led a few experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to the Imperial Garden. Jianshan followed the Glan princess around the Imperial Palace and soon arrived in a world of flowers. This was a sea of flowers with over 100 types of exotic flowers. The brightly colored flowers formed a perfect picture in the sea of flowers. The dense fragrance of the several dozen types of flowers permeated the air, dyeing the air in this space with a refreshing fragrance. Just a casual breath would make one feel refreshed. Along the way, the two of them didn't speak. The Princess Glan clearly liked this place. She leisurely walked around the flower bed, surrounded by all kinds of flowers. There was a faint smile on her face as she looked at these brightly colored flowers. This is the largest garden in the kingdom of Jessen's palace. I like this place very much. As long as I am in the palace, I will come here every day to look at these beautiful flowers. This is because many of them were personally planted by me. The Princess Gland said with a smile. Her voice was clear and melodious, as moving as a lark. She was wearing a snow-white dress. Coupled with her heavenly beauty, she stood in the sea of flowers like a flower fairy. She was so beautiful. Jianxin stared at the Princess Gland's beautiful face for a while and said, Princess Gland, have we met somewhere before? This sentence had been in Jianxin's heart for a long time. Hearing this, the Princess Gland moved her gaze away from the flowers and turned to look at Jianxin. She smiled faintly and said, My name is Yu Changyang Shoten. I don't know if you still remember. A figure suddenly appeared in Jianxin's mind. He suddenly realized, So it's you. We seem to have met a few years ago in Kargath Academy. No wonder I found a Princess Gland familiar. The Princess Gland could not help but recall the scene from a few years ago. At that time, she had met Changyang Shoten for the first time in Kargath Academy's library. Changyang Shoten's desire and obsession with books had left a deep impression on her. But now, only a few years had passed, and the puny saint from back then had become a peak expert of the Tian Yuan continent. Moreover, the Jessen kingdom, which had been in danger of being destroyed, had been saved by him alone. This made the Gland princess sigh in amazement, but she also found it hard to believe. Looking at the handsome Changyang Shoten before her, the Princess Gland hesitated slightly before saying, Changyang Shoten, I heard from my father that you are already a heaven saint master. I wonder if you can let me experience the feeling of flying. Hearing this, Jianxin hesitated for a while before nodding in the end. He smiled. Princess, please get ready. With that, Jianxin gently grabbed the Princess Gland's arm with his right hand. Although there was a layer of clothes between them, Jianxin could clearly feel the soft and supple skin of the Princess Gland's arm. The Princess Gland's arm was very slender and soft. Jianxin's small hand could wrap around it. The moment her arm was grabbed by Jianxin, a trace of panic appeared on the Princess Gland's face. Ever since she was young, other than her father, no other man had ever touched her body. However, before she could think about it, a dense layer of wind elemental energy enveloped her body. Afterward, she felt her feet leave the ground as she slowly rose into the air. Jianxin was calm. His eyes were as clear as water. He carefully rose into the air with the Grand Princess, slowly ascending into the sky. The Princess Gland calmed down very quickly. Her attention was completely attracted by the novelty of flying. Her face was filled with curiosity and joy as she looked at the shrinking palace below her. Her face was filled with excitement. Is this what it means to fly in the air? Flying freely in the sky like a bird. How enviable. The Princess Gland's face was filled with unconcealable envy. Princess Gland's talent is extraordinary. As long as you cultivate diligently, you will definitely become a heaven saint master in the future. Jianxin smiled. The Princess Gland did indeed have this talent. She already possessed the strength of a saint master. The two of them quickly landed on the ground and sat down in a pavilion in the garden. However, the way the Princess Gland looked at Jianxin had changed quite a bit. Looking at the beautiful Princess Gland, Jianxin hesitated for a moment before saying, Princess, Changyang Shoten, you should just call me Yu. That's what my father and Uncle Yi Ming call me. As soon as Jianxin opened his mouth, he was interrupted by the Princess Gland. After saying that, the Princess Gland's face turned slightly red. All right then. Jianxin did not act pretentiously and said, Yu Princess, there is something that I think I should discuss with you. The Princess Gland did not say anything. Her bright eyes blinked as she looked at Jianxin. Jianxin continued, Yu Princess, the marriage between the two of us was decided by our parents without our consent. Actually, I am very opposed to this kind of marriage. In the past, it was because I was not strong enough and did not have the ability to change anything, so I could only silently accept it. However, it's different now. I have enough power now. Jianxin stopped there. Although he did not explain, the extremely intelligent Yu understood what Jianxin meant. The Princess Glan fell silent as she stared blankly at the chess record on the stone table. After a while, she said, "Changyang Shoten, do you want to cancel the marriage between us? You, Princess, I believe that you're also very opposed to this kind of marriage. If you agree, I can immediately ask His Majesty to cancel this marriage. I know why your father is doing this, but you can rest assured that as a citizen of the Kingdom of Jesson, this is already my home. I will do my best to protect the Kingdom of Jesson," Jianshun said calmly. Back then, he was very opposed to this marriage. However, he did not have enough power back then and could not change anything. However, everything was different now. Chapter 457. Back in Kargath Academy, when she heard that her father had already arranged a marriage for her, the Glan Princess was extremely opposed to the marriage that was arranged without her consent. She had even taken the initiative to ask her father to cancel the marriage several times, but she had returned empty-handed every time. However, after all these years of growth, Princess Glan had gradually come to understand that the Jesson Kingdom was still a developing kingdom. Although she was the princess of a kingdom and had a delicate status, there were many things that were beyond her control. Take marriage as an example. When it came to matters that concerned her lifelong happiness, it was difficult for her to have a choice. In this life, she was destined to be a sacrifice for the kingdom's peace and prosperity. This caused her heart to gradually mature, and she slowly accepted such things. The Glan Princess was extremely opposed to the marriage that the king had arranged for her. However, ever since she heard about Jianshun's achievements and saw Jianshun, the Glan Princess' heart gradually changed. She gradually accepted Jianshun. After all, Jianshun was so handsome and talented. He was already a Heaven Saint Master at the age of 21. His future was limitless. He also had another identity as the imperial tutor of the Qin Empire. He was neither arrogant nor hot-tempered, and he was amiable and respectful. Being enveloped by so many halos of glory, Jianshun's image in the Glan Princess' heart became extremely great. He could be said to be the killer of all the girls in the world, the Prince Charming in their hearts. Previously, the Glan Princess was secretly delighted about the marriage because Jianshun was so outstanding. It would be difficult to find a second person like Jianshun in the entire world. Moreover, his special identity and great strength were extremely important to the Glan Kingdom. She felt a little excited that her future husband was such an outstanding person. However, at this moment, Jianshun actually took the initiative to cancel the engagement. This made the Princess of Glan feel very disappointed. Although the Princess of Glan did not develop feelings for Jianshun in this short period of time, Jianshun's excellence had already moved her heart. For a moment, both of them were silent. Neither of them spoke. After a long while, the Princess of Glan finally broke the strange silence and said, "Changyang Shoten, can you tell me why you want to dissolve this marriage? Could it be that you already have someone in your heart?" Jianshun shook his head and said, "Princess Glan, I'm sure you know what happened to me back then. I left Changyang Prefecture alone and wandered around for a few years. Although I was lucky enough to survive in the end, I provoked many enemies outside. Some of them were very powerful, and even I can't fight against them now. Moreover, perhaps in the near future, something even more serious will happen. Even I can't predict the outcome of this matter. Right now, I only want to focus on increasing my strength so that I can deal with the possible calamity in the future. I don't want to waste time on relationships." After hearing Jianshun's words, the Princess of Glan gently sighed in relief. She looked at Jianshun's resolute and handsome face with a smile and said gently, "Changyang Shoten, it's no wonder you were able to reach your current realm in just a few years. It seems that you've been working very hard on your cultivation. You must have suffered a lot over the years." When Jianshun heard about the suffering outside, he sighed in his heart. He had indeed worked very hard in the past few years and had paid a lot. Not only had he been on the brink of death time and time again, there was even one time where he had truly died. It was not a coincidence that he was able to achieve what he had today. "Princess, I hope you can understand. Right now, I don't want to talk about relationships. I need to increase my strength as quickly as possible to deal with the future." Jianshun spoke again, but in his heart, he thought of the Sure family and the Jetta family. These two families had saint kings in their ranks, which was what Jianshan was most afraid of. There was also the Qiangan kingdom, Yangji Zong, and the guardian family mentioned by the old headmaster who escaped. This made Jianshan a little worried. Could it be another powerful force that was difficult to deal with? However, from the old headmaster's words, Jianshan was able to deduce that the guardian family's strength was probably beyond his imagination. Lastly, there was the matter of the white tiger. Jianshan had always kept Uncle Xiu's warning in mind. He needed to increase the white tiger's strength as quickly as possible. Perhaps the white tiger's matter would also cause a storm. The Gilligan family and the white tiger had already become enemies. With the white tiger's status as a winged tiger, the Gilligan family would definitely not allow it to grow. This was because it would be a disaster for the Gilligan family. Now, Jianshan was worried that the king of the Gilligan family would ignore the agreement with the humans and leave the Cross Mountains to personally hunt down the white tiger. This was a terrifying existence that could easily kill a saint king. Jianshan did not dare to imagine if he would be able to escape from the Gilligan family. After a moment of hesitation, the princess said, "Changyang Shoten, my father personally decided on this marriage back then. Now that you want my father to cancel it, have you considered the dignity of the imperial family?" Seeing how Jianshan remained silent, the princess hesitated for a while before finally coming up with an idea. After a moment of hesitation, she still said, "How about this? The two of us can go to father and tell him to postpone the marriage indefinitely. If that's the case, Jianshan became rather troubled. If he did that, he would be wasting the princess' youth. Right now, he only wanted to increase his strength so that he could deal with the future. He had not considered his marriage at all. Princess Gland sighed softly. She felt a little helpless when she made such a decision. If it were before, she definitely would have agreed without any hesitation if Jianshan proposed to cancel the marriage. But now... Princess Gland, I never thought I'd see you here. What a coincidence. Suddenly, laughter rang out from nearby. A young man walked over with a smile on his face. He seemed to be around the same age as Jianshan and was also extremely handsome. However, he seemed rather scholarly, which was very different from Jianshan's resolute face. Two guards followed behind the young man. They seemed to be in their 50s, and their faces were composed while their gazes were sharp. "He's the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom," the princess whispered to Jianshan. Jianshan nodded slightly. His gaze only casually glanced at the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom before he lost interest. He began to admire the colorful sea of flowers around him. The second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was wearing a luxurious robe and holding a folding fan in his hand. He walked over elegantly from afar and sat down on the stone bench without waiting for the host's greeting. He did not even look at Jianshan. With a bright smile on his face, he said to the princess, "I never thought that I would meet the princess of the Gland Kingdom just by strolling around. It seems that this prince and the princess of the Gland Kingdom are really fated." After the princess of the Gland Kingdom and the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom exchanged some pleasantries, the second prince finally noticed Jianshan. He smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, this must be the fourth young master of the Chanyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten." Although the second prince had a smile on his face, his expression was arrogant, and his tone was filled with unconcealable arrogance. He looked at Jianshan with a hint of disdain. "That's right, it's me," Jianshan said expressionlessly. The second prince smiled and turned to look at the princess of the Gland Kingdom. He said, "Princess, I would like to speak with young master Changyang Shoten alone." The princess of the Gland Kingdom hesitated for a moment before standing up from the stone bench. She said, "Then I won't disturb the two of you." With that, she walked out of the pavilion and walked through the sea of flowers alone. After the princess of the Gland Kingdom left, the smile on the second prince's face disappeared. He looked at Jianshan with a threatening gaze and said in a deep voice, "Changyang Shoten, this prince knows that you are already engaged to the princess of the Gland Kingdom. However, the princess of the Gland Kingdom is someone that this prince has taken a fancy to. Anyone who dares to have any ideas about the princess of the Gland Kingdom is going against this prince. Therefore, this prince hopes that you can ask His Majesty to cancel this engagement. Jianshan looked at the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom with a mocking expression. He said, "It's not up to you to interfere in my affairs. Furthermore, you don't have the right to interfere. Your Highness, if there's nothing else, please leave." The second prince's expression changed. He looked at Jianshan with a cold gaze, and his tone became cold. He said, "Chanyang Shoten, do you know what you're saying? Do you really want to make an enemy of this prince? Do you want to bring disaster to Chanyang Prefecture? It seems like you don't know the strength of my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom." A cold smile appeared on Jinshan's lips. Since the second prince was so rude, he couldn't be bothered to give him any face. He said disdainfully, "Your Highness, what right do you have to be my enemy? Chanyang Prefecture isn't something that you can provoke. As for the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, do you believe that I can make your kingdom disappear overnight with just a word? How dare you?" The second prince was enraged. He slapped the stone table in front of him into two halves. He looked at Jianshan with eyes full of killing intent. He shouted angrily, "Chanyang Shoten, who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? Since you're seeking your own death, then this prince will fulfill your wish. Since you dare to insult my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, no one can save you now. Men, take him down and bring him back to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to be dealt with by my imperial father." The two guards standing behind the second prince stepped forward with gloomy expressions. Their sharp gazes were filled with killing intent. Jinshan's words had caused their hearts to be filled with killing intent. The two of them each stretched out a hand to grab Jinshan's shoulder. They didn't put Jinshan in their eyes at all. Chapter 458. The two guards had never expected Jinshan to counterattack. Furthermore, the sword chi was extremely fast, not giving them any time to dodge. In the end, their outstretched hands were struck by the sword chi, and their palms were immediately pierced by the sword chi, causing blood to flow. The two middle-aged men's expressions changed at the same time. The intense pain from their palms caused them to involuntarily groan. They looked at their palms in shock, their faces filled with disbelief. Neither of them had thought that the fourth young master of Chanyang Prefecture would have such ability. Although they were extremely surprised, the two middle-aged men did not show the slightest fear. After suffering this loss, the two of them did not dare to be as careless as before. Powerful saint force surged from their palms, instantly condensing into two weapons. Without any hesitation, they stabbed at Jianshan. The moment the two guards took out their saint weapons, the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom turned pale with fright and quickly retreated. He was extremely clear on the strength of the two guards, but he had never thought that the fourth young master of Chanyang Prefecture would actually be able to force them to take out their saint weapons. This caused him to feel extremely shocked. Jianshan sat on the stone bench as if he had entered a meditative state. His eyes were filled with disdain as he looked at the guards who were attacking him once again. His hand lightly tapped twice, and two more sword chi shot out from his fingertips, colliding with the two incoming saint weapons. The sword chi dissipated upon contact, but the two middle-aged men's bodies trembled. They only felt an extremely powerful force from the saint weapons in their hands, causing their entire right arm to go numb. The right hand that held the saint weapons also drooped slightly, and they could not help but take a few steps back. They had already retreated out of the pavilion. The second prince's gaze swept past the shocked guards. His expression was uncertain. He had expected to clash with Jianshan on this trip, but the result was the exact opposite of what he had expected. The two Earth Saint Master Guards he had brought were actually unable to do anything to him. The sound of fighting attracted the attention of Princess Glan, who was admiring the flowers not far away. She immediately ran over from afar and looked at the stone table that had been smashed to smithereens. She asked what happened. Why did they suddenly start fighting? Jianshan stood up from the stone bench and slowly walked to the edge of the pavilion with his hands behind his back. He coldly stared at the second prince and expressionlessly said, "Your Highness, you should understand the principle of a loose tongue leads to disaster. I hope you can watch your words. This world still does not belong to your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom." Hearing this, the second prince's face immediately became gloomy. he said in a deep voice. A loose tongue leads to disaster. That makes a lot of sense. Chanyang Shoten, this prince will remember your words. The future is long. Let's wait and see. After saying this, the second prince left with his 2 guards dejectedly. Looking at the second prince's departing figure, Jianshun faintly smiled. He really did not place the heavenly eagle kingdom in his eyes. The Glam princess looked at Jianshun's tall figure with a complicated expression. She gently walked to Jianshun's side and gently said, Chanyang Shoten, he is a prince of the heavenly eagle kingdom after all. Moreover, this is the imperial palace of our kingdom of Jessen. Don't make things too big, okay? Don't worry, I know my limits. Even if something really does happen, I will bear the consequences. Jianshun's tone was very calm. That's not what I meant. The Glam princess wanted to explain, but Jianshun interrupted her. Princess Yu, let's go back. The second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was undoubtedly one of the people who received the most attention in the imperial palace. Not long after Jianshun and the Glam princess left, the news of the second prince being humiliated in the garden had already spread to the ears of those with status in the imperial palace. His Majesty, who was chatting with Changyang Ba and his wife in the main hall, as well as the 2 princes, all received the news. In a splendidly decorated palace, 3 young men in their 20s were drinking and chatting merrily at a table filled with all sorts of delicacies. At this moment, a guard ran in from outside and whispered something in the ears of the 2 young men. Following this, a trace of surprise flashed in the eyes of the 2 young men. They waved their hands to signal the guard to leave, and their expressions became somewhat serious. Your Highnesses, may I ask what has happened? The young man sitting opposite the 2 asked curiously. The guard just sent news that the 4th young master of the Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten, has offended the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. This is not going to be easy. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom is not something that our kingdom of Jessen can afford to offend. One of the princes said with some worry. What, Chanyang Shoten? The young man who asked the question was slightly surprised, but soon a trace of joy appeared on his face. He asked, could it be that the 4th young master of the Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten, has returned? That's right, Chanyang Shoten has also just returned. We also received the news not long ago. Looking at brother Ming Dong's appearance, could it be that you know Chanyang Shoten? One of the princes asked curiously. Ming Dong nodded slightly, saying, I didn't think that he would return so quickly and even come to the palace. Your Highnesses, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. After speaking, Ming Dong hurriedly left, leaving the 2 princes of the kingdom of Jessen staring at each other, their faces full of shock and disbelief. Chanyang Shoten actually knows brother Ming Dong? One of the princes muttered in a low voice, extremely surprised. The second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom angrily returned to the palace where he was resting with his 2 guards. As soon as he entered the palace, he slammed his palm heavily on the table, immediately breaking the expensive wooden table in half. Chanyang Shoten, this prince will make you regret this. This prince will return today's humiliation to you 1,000 times over. The second prince's eyes were filled with murderous intent. As a prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, he had always been respected no matter where he went. He had never been humiliated like today. At this moment, Minister Che also returned. His complexion was not very good. Looking at the angry second prince, he could not help but feel curious, asking, Second prince, what happened? Why are you so angry? The people of Chanyang Prefecture are too arrogant. Then, the second prince truthfully recounted what had happened in the garden. Minister Che's expression became rather serious after hearing this. He said, to be able to easily defeat 2 Earth Saint Masters in his 20s, his talent is truly terrifying. No wonder the king of the Kingdom of Jessen insisted on a marriage alliance with Chanyang Prefecture. It was all because of Chanyang Shoten. The second prince turned his head and stared at Minister Che. He said, Minister Che, did your discussion with the king also fail? Minister Che nodded and said, yes, the king is determined to betroth Princess Grant to Chanyang Shoten. Even if I brought up the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, I could not sway him at all. But the king is right. If I were him, I would have done the same. I never thought that Chanyang Shoten would have such strength. With such talent, given a few more days, his future achievements will be limitless. Who knows? He might even bring the kingdom of Jessen into a golden age. A strong killing intent flashed through the second prince's eyes. His voice gradually became cold. He said coldly, "This is a threat to the heavenly eagle kingdom. Once the kingdom of Jessen becomes strong, it will definitely threaten the heavenly eagle kingdom. Chanyang Shoten cannot be left alive." Minister Che nodded and said, "That's right. Since Chanyang Shoten has said such disgraceful words, we can use this as a pretext to make a fuss. Then I will bring some experts to take down Chanyang Shoten." The second prince was about to take action. He could not wait any longer. "Wait," Minister Che said. "Your Highness, I have two plans to resolve this matter." Minister Che whispered into the second prince's ear. Jinshin and Princess Glan had already returned to the palace. The king and Chanyang Ba were still chatting and laughing. "My dear nephew, you've come at the right time. You are not young anymore. Let's choose an auspicious day to get you two married as soon as possible," the king said with a smile. It seemed that he was very eager to get his daughter married. Chanyang Ba and Bai Yintian were also smiling. They were on the king's side. Hearing this, Jinshin hesitated slightly and said, "Your Highness, I have many things to deal with during this period of time. It is not the time to talk about love. Let's postpone this marriage for now." The king frowned. He exchanged glances with Chanyang Ba and his wife. He seemed to be in a difficult position. "Father, I also agree to postpone this marriage," Princess Glan suddenly said. Her face was very calm. It was impossible to tell if she was happy, angry, or sad. Seeing that Jinshin and Princess Glan both agreed to postpone the marriage, the king had no other choice. He sighed and said, "All right, since the two of you want to postpone the marriage, then let's postpone it for a while." The king's face was filled with unconcealable disappointment. The status of the fourth young master of Chanyang Prefecture was no longer the same as before. The king could only follow his wishes. He did not dare to force him to do anything. "Xianger, why are you doing this?" Bai Yintian looked at Jinshin with some blame. "Mother, I really have many things to do. I don't have the energy to talk about love." Jinshin's face was filled with bitterness. In the eyes of others, he was the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire and a powerful heaven saint master. However, only he knew how much pressure he was facing. The matter of the marriage being postponed indefinitely made the king and Chanyang Ba and his wife feel a little disappointed. As parents, they naturally hoped that their children could get married sooner. Moreover, the other party was so outstanding. The crowd quickly dispersed. Jinshin and his parents were arranged to rest in a luxurious palace in the imperial palace. These palaces were specially used to entertain important guests. Chapter 459. At this moment, a guard ran in from outside and said, "Fourth young master Chanyang Shoten, there's a person called Ming Dong outside who wishes to see you." Jinshin was slightly stunned when he heard Ming Dong's name. Soon afterwards, a sliver of joy appeared on his face, and he quickly made his way out. When Jinshin emerged from the palace, he saw a young man in white robes standing there with a smile. It was Ming Dong, who he had not seen in half a year. Ming Dong arrived before Jinshin with an excited smile. He extended his hand and patted Jinshin's shoulder heavily. He smiled high. "Jinshin, you really have returned. You've come back much sooner than I expected." Jinshin studied Ming Dong. Ming Dong seemed to have undergone an extremely obvious change compared to half a year ago. He was much more composed and did not seem as impetuous as before. "Let's go in and talk." Jinshin led Jinshin into the palace with a smile. The king had specially arranged for Jinshin to live in. There were 50 black armored guards outside. Jinshin and Jinshin sat down on chairs. A female attendant immediately poured tea and snacks for the two of them before withdrawing under Jinshin's orders. "I was just about to go look for you when I had the time. I never thought you'd be hiding in the palace." Jinshin was clearly in a very good mood as well. He and Ming Dong were the closest of brothers, so he was naturally very happy to see each other again. When the war had just ended, I accepted the king's invitation. It was difficult for me to turn down such kindness, so I came to stay in the palace for a few days and experience this kind of life. This is the first time I've experienced something like this, so I obviously have to enjoy it for a few more days. Ming Dong chuckled. Have you enjoyed enough? Jianxin smiled. Ming Dong picked up a snack and placed it in his mouth, munching on it as he mumbled, I originally wanted to stay here for a few more days, but since you've returned, I'll naturally follow you in the future. Wherever you go, Ming Dong, will go. Suddenly, Ming Dong turned to Jianxin and said, Right, Jianxin, should I call you Changyang Shoten or Jianxin? Just call me Jianxin. I like that name better. I only use the name Changyang Shoten at home. Outside, I'm Jianxin, Jianxin said without any hesitation. Ming Dong nodded, his expression suddenly becoming serious. I've already completed the mission you gave me. I've already personally handed the heaven-seizing fortune art to your father. Furthermore, I know about your past. Count me in on the Hawaiian sex matter. When the time comes, don't forget to call me. Jianxin chuckled. There's no need for that. I've already dealt with the Hawaiian sex matter. Ming Dong was startled, asking in confusion. Dealt with? How'd he solve it? You won't let the Hawaiian sect off so easily, right? Jianxin and Jianxin had been discussing things in the palace until late into the night. Jianxin had nothing to hide from Ming Dong, so he told him everything that had happened after they had parted. However, he hid the matter of the white tiger. It wasn't that Jianxin didn't trust Ming Dong, but rather that the fewer people who knew about the white tiger, the better. Moreover, telling Ming Dong this matter would only increase the pressure on him. After hearing about everything that had happened to Jianxin, Ming Dong couldn't help but sigh, especially when Jianxin said that he had fought against 8 Heaven Saint Masters. Ming Dong's heart skipped a beat. I never thought that so many things would happen. The Jitta family and the Shur family definitely won't forgive him. Once we have enough strength, we'll definitely make those 2 families pay a heavy price. However, Jianxin, you could be considered to have profited from a disaster. Although you've suffered a great calamity, your strength has increased by leaps and bounds. You've actually become a Heaven Saint Master and the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire. I find it hard to believe. If I haven't guessed wrong, you should only be 21 years old. Ming Dong only left late into the night. He was a guest of the Kingdom of Jessen, so he had his own residence in the palace. After Ming Dong left, Jianxin also entered his room and sat cross-legged on the bed in deep thought. At this time, the white tiger, who had been sleeping soundly on the bed, finally woke up after digesting the medicine. The white tiger stood up, feeling refreshed. It stretched lazily on the bed and stared at Jianxin with its bright little eyes. Then, it leapt onto Jianxin's shoulder and rubbed its furry little head against Jianxin's face. It let out a few whimpers, showing that it was very attached to Jianxin. The white tiger could freely control the size of its body, so it was still only a foot long. It was like a little white cat, obedient and cute. Jianxin lifted the white tiger off his shoulder and sensed the energy within it. He could not help but smile. It had only been a few days, but the white tiger had already reached Class 3. This growth rate was truly terrifying. If this continued, the white tiger's strength would definitely reach Class 5 within a year as long as he provided it with enough heavenly resources. As expected of a winged tiger that only appeared once in ancient times, its growth rate is just too fast, Jianxin sighed inside. Jianxin took out a few thousand-year-old heavenly resources from his space ring again and said softly, Work hard to increase your strength. Raise your strength to the highest possible level. Only then will you have the ability to protect yourself. Heavenly resources were irresistible to the white tiger. As soon as it saw the 1,000-year-old heavenly resources in Jianxin's hand, the white tiger's eyes immediately lit up. It wolfed them down and revealed an extremely happy expression. It let out a comfortable burp before lying in Jianxin's arms and closing its eyes, falling into a deep sleep to digest the medicinal effects. Looking at the sleeping white tiger, a trace of worry appeared on Jianxin's face. He muttered, The closer it gets to the later stages, the greater the amount of energy needed. The speed of digesting energy will also increase exponentially. I wonder how long the heavenly resources in my hands can last. It seems like I have to think of something. Afterwards, Jianshan slowly closed his eyes and held 2 Class 5 monster cores in his hands as he cultivated. Without a king armament, Jianshan could only use the energy within the monster cores to slowly evolve into chaotic force. Jianshan knew that chaotic force was extremely powerful. Although he could not use it right now, once he had a good foundation, he would naturally be able to use chaotic force in the future. And this foundation was his physical body. Only when his physical body was strong enough could he support the circulation of chaotic force. Right now, he needed enough chaotic force to strengthen his physical body. Once he could use chaotic force, Jianshan believed that his strength would once again increase by leaps and bounds. In the latter half of the night, the entire imperial palace was quiet, so quiet that it was frightening. Squads of soldiers wearing black armor were moving around the imperial palace, silently protecting the imperial palace. Suddenly, a figure completely hidden in the night flashed past, silently approaching Jianshan's imperial palace. The surrounding darkness completely submerged his figure, as if he had completely merged into the darkness. Even if someone were to approach him, it would be difficult to detect his presence. The figure that had merged into the darkness easily avoided the black armored soldiers guarding outside the imperial palace, and silently entered the imperial palace. The interior of the imperial palace was pitch black, without the slightest bit of light. The surrounding darkness did not seem to affect the black figure at all. He could clearly see the surrounding scenery in the dark. After the black figure scanned the surroundings, he stealthily and noiselessly arrived at Jianshan's room. He saw Jianshan sitting cross-legged on the bed, cultivating. When the black figure was 10 meters away from Jianshan, a jade bottle appeared in his hand. He gently removed the lid, and a faint gas emitted from the bottle, slowly drifting towards Jianshan. The black figure waited for a few seconds. Seeing that it was about time, he put away the jade bottle, and a jet-black dagger silently appeared in his hand. He then turned into a black streak of light and shot towards Jianshan, stabbing the dagger towards Jianshan's throat. At this moment, a purplish-green light flashed in the dark room. A crisp sound of metal clashing could be heard, and the black shadow's charging figure came to an abrupt stop. Instead of moving forward, he staggered back a few steps. Every step he took on the ground made a dull sound of footsteps. How rare. I've actually encountered a darkness-attributed saint force. An indifferent voice rang out in the pitch-black room. Jianshan had already opened his eyes. The surrounding darkness did not seem to affect him at all. He calmly looked at the figure that seemed to have completely merged into the darkness. Why? You're actually fine. How is that possible? The figure hidden in the darkness was extremely shocked. Jianshan smiled faintly. Your poison is too weak. It's useless against me. The black figure knew that his assassination had failed. He had actually been discovered by Jianshan, even though he was stealthy. He was not Jianshan's opponent in a direct confrontation, so he no longer hesitated. He turned into a black streak of light and charged outside with lightning-like speed, completely silent. Darkness-attributed Saint Force people were known as the Kings of the Night. The night was their world. Not only could they perfectly hide their presence, they could also merge their bodies into the darkness, making it very difficult for others to detect them. You want to leave? Not so easy. Jianshan sneered. He grabbed at the air, and the dark space immediately lit up. In a single moment, a fiery red elemental sword condensed in his hand. The bright light illuminated the dark room, alarming even the black armored army guarding outside. Swish! With a shake of his hand, the fire elemental sword shot out. It nimbly made a few turns in the room before finally breaking through the door and shooting toward the fleeing black figure. Boom! A violent roar resounded as flames lit up the sky. The entire palace was alarmed. That black figure was engulfed by the waves of flames that were emitting intense heat. He let out a miserable cry as he could no longer hide. His body was exposed. The clothes on his body were instantly burned to ashes. Although he finally escaped the sea of flames, he was severely injured. Assassin! Assassin! The originally quiet palace instantly became lively. A large number of soldiers in black armor quickly ran over from afar with torches in their hands. Figures constantly flashed on the roofs. Some of the experts hidden in the palace also rushed over at full speed to the place where the light of the fire shone. Seeing that they had been exposed, the person who had come to assassinate Jianshun did not dare to stay any longer. Ignoring his injuries, he crawled to his feet and fled into the darkness.